Hey guys, welcome back. This is a story about what if Naruto went to the world of One Piece. Naruto's age has passed him by as his time is over. Now he attempts to seek out a place for himself in the new world, and it's bigger than he ever figured it to be. Will be epic in length. Before we start, thank you for all of the support, it really means a lot to me. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel and leave a like. You can suggest a Naruto fanfiction with a link in the comments if you want me to read it. And check the description for the creator of this great fanfic and support them for making this fanfic. So let's start. Chapter 19. Past Transgressions. Wah. Thump. Do it again, Naruto said as he sat on the railing overlooking the deck in a meditative pose. Vivi pulled herself off of the ground and dusted herself off, glaring at Naruto. You can give me that look all you want to. Scarier people than you have tried to stare me down, princess. Now get back to the start and do it again. Vivi huffed but did as she was told. The other day she tried fighting Naruto again out of anger at not progressing very much in her training and wound up getting a low-key beatdown from Naruto, who didn't even open his eyes to do it. From that point she realized that the only reason Nojiko ever hit him with her pistol was because Naruto let her. If he was really trying, she would never have hit him. Vivi took a deep breath as she tried to get herself ready for another go-through of Naruto's wire obstacle course before turning back to him. Can you even do this? Yes. Naruto said without opening his eyes or even moving. Even if I was controlling this with my eyes open, I could send a cage bunshin and he would still get through this course. You think it's hard now? I haven't blindfolded you yet, Vivi. You can't complain yet, it's only been a few days. Vivi frowned and took her eyes away from him to focus on the course layout. She could barely see the sunlight shining off of the metal wiring and started stepping through carefully. She quickly learned a loophole to Naruto's training that she believed he left on purpose. He never said how fast she had to go, just that he wanted her to get through it. Therefore she was just taking small thought-out steps, trying to outwit Naruto. It didn't matter how patient she tried to be though, Naruto was always attentive without even opening his eyes and was always ready to ensnare her. Accidentally stepping on a wire, Vivi felt it try to tighten underneath her feet. Vivi, deciding to go for broke, jumped forward only to see the sun glare off of a set wires in midair meant to trap her. She managed to contort her body through and land in a front handspring and get herself back upright before a wire could catch the hand she had planted onto the ground. Standing straight up, she came face to face with a web of wires that stopped her in her tracks as well as a wall of them behind her. Well, it looks like someone had a breakthrough, Naruto said with a smile on his face as he opened his eyes to look at Vivi. He let the wires drop so that she could relax and he could reset them. You do your best work evading when you don't think about doing it, Vivi. You have reflexes like a cat, and even though you have no idea where a threat is coming from, you still know something is going to happen and your muscles are already prepared to respond well in advance. Naruto then blinked. Speaking of threats, he then tossed out a shuriken at the crow's nest where Nojiko was. The weapon angled around from her side to her back stealthily. In response to that, Nojiko whipped around suddenly, pulled out one of her pistols and let off a swow that hit the shuriken and knocked it from the sky. Naruto-kun, that one wasn't fake. She yelled at him angrily. Why are you throwing real weapons at me? To keep you sharp, Noji-chan. Naruto yelled back. Nojiko swore at him and hit him before he burst into smoke and a log dropped to the ground in his place. Nojiko pointed her pistol back over her shoulder in time for Naruto to appear behind her in a shunshin, placing the barrel right under his chin. I'm really getting sick of you doing that. I even waited. There was no way you sensed my presence. Nojiko smiled cheekily, getting Naruto to grin at her before he burst into smoke again. This time Naruto appeared in front of her and wrapped his arms around her, about to squeeze her tightly when he felt the barrel of her pistol again, this time on his junk. Nojiko's smile was miv. I saw that coming too. You can't surprise me anymore, Naruto-kun. Naruto paled at the fact that Nojiko had not removed the gun from his most blatant weak point. I swear I am going to find out how you can do that. Does it only work when I attack you? Is it some kind of sixth sense? Nojiko blinked in his arms. Can't Vivi do it? You were just talking about something like that with her. Naruto shook his head. No, you know exactly what I'm going to do when I attempt it. The look on your face says that you had me pegged the second I threw that shuriken. Vivi can't do that. You can see it in her eyes when she dodges or does anything that she can't. She doesn't know what I'm going to do, But her reflexes make sure that it doesn't matter, she can still for the most part avoid most things that are way faster than her. If I want to hit her with anything I have to really focus. You would too. I still can't shoot you yet, can I, Naruto-kun? Nojiko whispered to him softly. Naruto grinned and pushed his forehead against her as he pulled the barrel away from himself. Maybe one day soon you'll hit me, but you know you wouldn't have pulled the trigger there anyway. You like that part of me too much to blow it away. Naruto finished wrapping his arms around her and shunshined back down to the deck. I have something new for you to learn how to do. A confused look came onto Nojiko's face when Naruto stood her directly in front of the first mast and placed a bullseye on the second one. What is this? Learning how to dive from behind cover and hit my mark. Naruto shook his head. No, you can already do that. I told you all that the training I was going to make you all do would piss you off. Well, this is going to piss you off. I want you to hit that bullseye with a swow from your pistol. Nojiko shrugged, not seeing what the point was all about, and moved to the side when Naruto called out to her and motioned for her to step back where he had initially put her, finally getting th point to dawn on her. No way. That's impossible. Unless you want me to stretch my arm like Luffy does, I can't hit it. No such thing as impossible, Noji-chan. Naruto said, taking her pistol away from her. Give me a day with one of your guns and I'll make it possible. Nojiko let him take a pistol from her and walk away. What are you going to do? You'd better not mess it up. I'm used to that one. It's like an extension of myself by now. Naruto turned around at the door of the ship to the gun-toting girl and gave her a wide grin. I know what I'm doing, Nojiko. This is a test. If this works, I'm going to use it on our cannons. Just give me a day. Nojiko watched him shut the door behind him. If you mess up my pistol, I will shove a live grenade down your throat and make you swallow it. I love that gun. She sighed, not knowing if she had been hurt or not before speaking to Vivi. He's going to break my gun. I just know he is. Vivi let out a sigh of relief as she saw Naruto head inside. This training is really working my nerves. I feel paranoid even when nothing is happening. I always think the next step I take is going to end with me strung up in midair. Nojiko walked over to Vivi and put a hand on her shoulder. You know, Naruto-kun, training you makes you a member of our crew. Vivi smiled until Nojiko continued, a probationary member of the crew. What? Vivi said, well, how do I get to be a full status member? Nojiko laughed slightly. You need an actual job that needs to be fulfilled on the crew. I'm the navigator and den mother to this boat of psychopaths, the cook is Miss Valentine, and Johnny and Yosaku are the chore boys, but don't let them hear you say that. What does Soren do? Vivi asked in return. She really didn't see him do anything except sleep and fight and hang out in the crow's nest from time to time. He doesn't have a real job. Nojiko sweet dropped. Well, he doesn't really do anything actually. He knows of every famous pirate worth mentioning on the Grand Line, so that's one thing. The only person out of all of us that can beat him would be Naruto-kun, and he seems to follow Naruto-kun's orders, the few that he actually ever gives, so I guess just off of strength he's a crew member. Naruto was the one that gave you the probation title thing. I think he's messing with you, but I'm going with it. Vivi sat down, taking the time to go on break for a moment. You know, you guys keep this ship in really good condition for all of the fighting you guys get into. She then looked closer at the deck and saw all of the slash marks, minor cracks on the ground, and bullet holes strewn about. Never mind. You keep the hull in really good shape at least, but the rest of the ship you guys tear this place apart. Not sure how to actually receive that. Nojiko simply shrugged. It still floats and we haven't fallen through the floor yet, so I'd say we're good. It's better that we destroy the ship ourselves than someone else. We haven't even taken any battle damage yet. We do a good job of avoiding fights on the water, which is good, because 2 of the people on this ship can't swim. Soren and Miss Valentine, right? Vivi asked, getting a nod from Nojiko, and that's probably why Soren follows Naruto's orders, because otherwise he could just blast him with ocean water and beat him that way. Whatever works. Nojiko said offhandedly as she also went inside. Let me go outside, Uzumaki. Naruto was standing just outside of Soren's door, leaning against the wall beside it while the sound of Soren scratching on the door itself like a dog trying to get outside rang out. I've been in here forever, I'm going stir crazy. If you don't let me out, all. Naruto cut him off. If you try to burn through the door with acid, or knock it down, or do anything that breaks anything in there at all, I'm going to beat your tie you to the bed, and have a cage bunch and throw seawater on you every 20 minutes to keep you powerless. He rapped on the door to ensure he had Soren's attention. You're still hurt. And unless you get magician-like escape capabilities the way I did when I was a kid in the hospital, you aren't getting out of there until the week is up or we get somewhere where you can stretch out on land. Soren stopped scratching on the door. Well, how close are we to some land? He asked aggressively. I could walk around yesterday if you didn't have your guard dogs Johnny and Yosaku watching the door. I need to get back to training. Naruto raised an eyebrow. How do you train anyway? Because I never see you do it. I think I would notice if there were burned through spots all over the ship. I can control how potent my acid is. Genius. Soren said derogatorily to his captain. I can make it strong enough to eat through most metals in a few seconds or make it as weak as simple sweat. You don't see it because it isn't dangerous when I train, and I train on top of the crow's nest and fire all of my attacks out at the water. You're usually too busy tormenting, training, everyone else that needs the help. Why would you worry about what I'm doing to train? I know what I'm doing. I've been training myself for years. Yeah, to kill some guy. Naruto said as if he had heard it a million times before. What guy? And why do you want to kill him? You haven't been very forthcoming with the information. I had to find out from a poster what your bounty was. I don't know who this guy is that you want to kill. I know less about you than you do about me. Soren was silent for a moment. The less you know the better, Uzumaki. I never asked you about anything. I understand that there are some things that other people don't need to know about you. Give me the same courtesy at least. A frown crossed Naruto's face. Fine, but this better not supersede everything. If you can find the guy and our paths cross, I will give you your swao at him. But you better not lose your head. I need you able to think and reason. You're too important to just be some revenge-driven berserker. I can't make any promises. Soren opened the door, still covered in bandages on every visible part of his body and under his clothes, and looked at Naruto, tracing the mark on his own face that trailed down his arm with his finger. He was the one that did this to me. Naruto squinted and looked hard at Soren. It looked like some kind of tribal marking. He thought it was something like what the clans in the elemental nations had. How in the did he do that to you? You're too strong for anyone to do anything like that to you without you getting them back. A humorless laugh came from Soren. There's a time in everyone's life, no matter how strong they are at some point, when they are completely and utterly defenseless. Yep. I couldn't fight very well when I was 7. I didn't even have the power of the Ebi no Mi either. I didn't get that until later. Naruto shook his head. Don't let it consume you, Soren. If you do, and you get your revenge, you'll just find something else that you need to get your revenge on. Something worse, something bigger. And it'll turn you into a monster. Trust me. Soren gave him a dry look. And what would you know about getting revenge, Uzumaki? Naruto backed away. Me? Nothing. But I've seen someone with a bigger desire for it than you for a better reason, and he got his revenge. With that, Naruto walked away, leaving Soren standing in his doorway. And, Soren said impatiently. Naruto stopped halfway down the hall and turned around. And what? Soren got a tick mark on his head. He knew Naruto wasn't really that stupid. Don't give me that crap. What happened to the guy that got his revenge? You can't just cut something off like that in the middle of making your point. Naruto had a sweat drop on his head. Well, sorry for trying to be dramatic and cool. He scratched his scalp. Anyway, that guy ended up pushing all of his problems from one source to another, just because he couldn't let it all go. It drove him insane. He FPED his entire worldview at least twice and he lost himself to his madness. I just don't want to see that kind of thing happen to you, Soren. Soren said thoughtfully, the way you're saying all of this makes me think you knew the guy that you're talking about personally. I did. Naruto admitted freely. So what ended up happening to him? Soren asked curiously. Let it be known that Naruto was very good at making you want to know things about him. Naruto turned around again and just walked away after being asked that question. Well, with his renewed sense of vengeance and a new slew of powers to take it with, he ended up trying to destroy my home and friends and wound up being manipulated like a fool by a madman set on taking over everything, so I killed him. He let that end the conversation, and I really hope I never have to watch it happen to anyone else, Soren. Naruto looked out over the front of the ship and saw an island on the horizon. So where are we now? He asked Nojiko, who had a map in her hands. Jaya. She said, putting the map down. I don't know anything about this place, Naruto-kun. Are we near land yet? Soren said, accompanied by Johnny and Yosaku as they made their way towards Naruto and Nojiko. Where are we? Nojiko put the map in front of his face and pointed at Jaya. Fun. Soren said with a grin, you're going to want to get all of your guns and ammunition beautiful. He said to Nojiko, the two boneheads are going to want to keep their hands near their swords at all times. Valentine and the princess going to have to watch their skirts at all times, and Uzumaki is going to have a blast here if only because of the copious amounts of idiots here that will probably try to fight him because he's a pretty boy. Naruto grinned right back at Soren, really? He asked excitedly, getting a fervent nod of confirmation. Fun. I know. Soren returned before elaborating on what the big deal was. Jaya is full of one thing and one thing only. Wannabe big swow pirates that think they're wow for making it this far on the Grand Line. The last time I was here I ended up having to kill 5 guys picking a fight with me because my bounty wasn't as high back then as it is now. I eventually bartered Paige off, but the point is, this place is pretty much lawless. All there are here are pubs, weapon stores, weapon stores, pubs, and pubs. Nojiko looked through a pair of binoculars at the toe. It doesn't seem that bad to me actually. It actually looks pretty nice from where I'm looking. Miss Valentine came up, followed by Vivi. That's Mock Town. And it looks that nice because no one destroys the actual property, they'd rather just buy stuff and get drunk. Still, fights do happen here. She looked away distastefully with a fake laugh. I hate this place. I had to come here to see if there were any pirates with potential for Baroque works. So many holes tried to hit on me and flaunt their bounties at me. Hey beautiful, I've got a bounty of 10 million. Why don't you come and get with the next up and coming pirate? Idiots. Naruto looked at her, pout and pointed at her, right then. You and Vivi are staying here on the ship when we dock. Vivi's jaw dropped before she complained about the current course of action vehemently. Hey, just because she didn't want to go doesn't mean I don't. Naruto's finger shifted from pointing at Miss Valentine to pointing at Vivi, probationary crew member. Follow your orders. I will have order and obedience on my ship. Johnny smirked. Naruto Aniki, you don't tell any of us to do a thing on this ship other than our jobs, which don't really take that long. The rest of the time we all do nothing. The only people that follow your orders all the time are your clones. Naruto gave Johnny a deadpan look that eventually unnerved the sungles wearing man before the blonde made a half tiger hand seal. You. Weight increase. Fuin. Johnny dropped face first on the deck before picking himself up shakily. Now. I order you to stay here and be Valentine and Vivi's guard dogs since you like to mouth off at the captain so much. Fine. Johnny said, as he finished struggling to his feet. Asshole. Now you want to act like a captain. He said under his breath before his weight bands glowed blue again and deposited him face first onto the deck again. Vivi checked where Johnny's body hit. Wow, that left a really good divot in the ground. Johnny groaned in reply. You guys need to fix this stuff, the deck is starting to look like a battlefield. Naruto shrugged. Training ground would be the more appropriate description. Now let's go to Whole Pirate City. I haven't punched an actual human being in the face in a while, and if I take Noji-chan she will be getting hit on constantly, giving me tons of excuses to actually do it, unless she shoots them first. It's called Mock Town. Nojiko said before she narrowed her eyes and crossed her arms. You still have one of my pistols, idiot. Naruto rubbed the back of his head sheepishly. I'm not done with it yet. You can use one until I get the other one back to you, can't you? You have like 4 more guns on you, not just the pistols. Nojiko sulked at his question. I like that gun, Johnny chimed in from the ground. You know what I like when I have a concussion. Silence. Can you all please shut the up until the ringing in my head stops? Everyone around him went silent while Vivi kept poking at him with the toe of her white-heeled boot. Thank you. Island of Jaya Mock Town. Naruto, Soren, Nojiko, and Yosaku walked through the town that looked like a resort, with the exception of the pirates looking at them with violence in their eyes for the men, and, something else for Nojiko. Can I please scare the out of them now, Noji-chan? Naruto asked desperately. They've been giving us all looks since the second we docked and you won't let us just beat them up and be done with it. We're not going to maim anyone. Nojiko stopped in front of the group and pointed firmly in Naruto's face. You aren't getting us into trouble here. I would like to be in a town that you didn't turn into a war zone for once, and the log pose hasn't reset yet. Soren's still hurt and I don't feel like letting him off to go on his own where he's going to undoubtedly piss someone off and start a fight. Yosaku's the only one out of you three being good for once. Soren scoffed. He's just ing up so that you don't pistol whip him. Look at him, he wants to go over and start mean mugging right back at these guys. Yosaku's eye was twitching as his facial features otherwise didn't betray his calm demeanor. Why aren't you going over there and kicking some right now? In order to make himself seem more serious, Yosaku had taken to keeping his long green jacket closed due to the insistence of everyone else on the ship that it looked cooler that way, because after I win Nojiko Ainu will pistol whip me for fighting. He said with a serious gesture, making Nojiko sweat drop. Naruto Aniki destroys enough towns without me being the catalyst to this one's demise. I'm not that bad, am I? Naruto and Nojiko said at the same time before looking at each other. You do hit us all the time, Noji-chan. Naruto said matter-of-factly. Nojiko swow right back. You've caused hundreds of millions of belly of property damage since the day I met you. You destroyed an entire fortress the day I met you. I cannot stress this enough. You are a force of nature, and I mean that in the worst way possible. Soren smirked. I didn't hear you saying that to him last night. Nojiko blushed brightly. If my ears were correct, I was hearing a lot of comparisons between Uzumaki and God, or was that just me? Ow! Exclamation mark quote. Soren was rubbing a knot on his head caused by the butt of Nojiko's pistol. I'm still hurt here. I need a drink now. Uzumaki, pick a direction. Southeast. Naruto shouted gleefully before blinking in confusion. Wait, why did you make me shout a random direction? Soren looked southeast and pointed where there was a bar in plain sight. Because I just wanted you to pick somewhere for me to get drunk. Nojiko glared at him. What? You don't need me. The log pose isn't going to reset for a while, so I'm going to go get smashed. Who's with me? Naruto and Yosaku both raised their hands until Nojiko lowered Naruto's and dragged him off. Come on. Why? Why? I've got money to spend. I want bottles. Nojiko shook her head and continued to drag him off. Because we need to get the rest of your treasure converted into actual usable cash. Until then you don't have anything to spend. Now come on, you lush, you're supposed to be the captain here. Yosaku turned to Soren after Nojiko dragged Naruto away. So, drink. Drink. Soren agreed. Drink until the sun goes down and the world starts making me a little less angry. He put an arm around Yosaku's neck and dragged him into the chosen pub. Hours later, dusk, Nojiko happily lead a visibly bored Naruto carrying 5 MIV sacks back through town. Cheer up, Naruto-kun, at least we have all of the surplus treasure you took way back with Nami turned into cash. Naruto frowned. It took hours. I wish you would have let me leave a cage bunshin. Then we could have actually done something useful while we were waiting for the guy to get everything together. He looked at her to see Nojiko beaming at the fact that they had so much money. You're really happy right now, aren't you? Nojiko bumped her hip into his happily. I grew up poor, Naruto-kun, and to go along with that Arlong was taxing and terrorizing everyone, so I've never had much money. All of the money Nami stole was to free the village, so I never got to touch any of that, and now I travel with you and you aren't exactly broke. It's fun. Naruto grinned at her. Well, maybe I should spoil all of you if that's the case. You know, get you all some kind of awesome gift of some sort, because I care. Maybe it will make Vivi less pissed off at me. She's just a little frustrated. Nojiko said, she'll feel better when it's clear that your training is really working. You haven't failed with any of us yet, Naruto-kun. How do you know how to train all of us? Naruto rubbed the back of his head sheepishly. I've seen a lot of fights, Noji-chan. Like I said, I don't think there's anything on the Grand Line that I can see that would scare me to death or catch me too much off guard. Have you seen me scared of anything yet? Nojiko laughed nervously. If I ever see you scared of anything, then I'll have to believe that we're in some serious trouble, so do your best to keep that from all of us if you could. So, where to next? That's easy. Naruto said as he and Nojiko continued to walk along. We need more gauze, duct tape, and super glue. Nojiko gave him a deadpan look. What? If you can't fix your injuries with duct tape and super glue, then you have a serious problem. I'd rather my medical treatments don't leave me with scars. Nojiko said contemptuously at Naruto's primitive medical practices. We seriously need to find a doctor before one of us gets killed. We've been lucky all the way through so far. Naruto sighed. Soren's fine. Besides, we aren't going to find anyone here. Everyone here makes wounds, not fixes them. Of course, if you're feeling brave, you can start yelling for a doctor. I'm sure that would get you a lot of innuendo-laced comments from the people leering at your chest. Your tattoo really does draw attention to your chest, Noji-chan. She crossed her arms under her bosom, making them more prominent. You know you love it. Never said I didn't. Naruto said with a grin. A smirking Nojiko winked at him before sounds of a nearby ruckus caught her attention. Someone must be fighting. What should we do? Naruto stroked his chin with his free hand while he held the sacks of money. Well, my heart says to go away and ignore it. My gut says to go over there because I'm bored. And my brain says to ignore my gut because gut's a moron. And then they get to fighting, and now I want ramen, but brain knows that we won't find any, and that pisses off both heart and gut, so they kick brains even more. Nojiko just stared at him for a prolonged period of time before speaking. Okay. Not only did that not answer my question, you just made me fear for your sanity 3 times in the same sentence. Good. Naruto said brightly before grabbing a hold of Nojiko's hand. Now let's go see the fight and then ask if anyone knows where I can get some ramen. As the two made their way towards the crowd cleared a path as a very tall man, taller than Crocodile, with blonde hair and flamboyant clothes came through, walking in a seemingly bow-legged pattern. The man wore a pink, feathered coat, a white shirt with red stripes underneath, a green belt, orange pants with white stripes, and orange-tinted sungles. The man stopped in front of Naruto and Nojiko and looked them over with a grin on his face. Nice hair. Naruto raised an eyebrow. Right back at you. He said in reply. What's happening back there? The man shrugged and walked away, grin present on his face. Nothing important. It was actually pretty boring to me. Leaving the confused Naruto and Nojiko behind, he simply kept walking along past them and on his way. Naruto and Nojiko kept walking past the crowd to find 2 men on the ground motionless. One had blonde hair, scars on his face and wore a blue captain's coat. The other was a man with shoulder-length blue hair, and an open white furred coat. He had a large curved knife in his hand but neither were moving. Naruto walked over to them where there was a blonde woman in sungles and a red bandana kneeling over them. What happened here? It looks like they fought each other and nobody won. Da Flamingo. The woman said. He said that he didn't need Bellamy or Sarkis, that they were failures for picking a fight and losing to the Straw Hat Kid. He made them fight each other and now. Nojiko walked over and looked at the scene. They fought with Luffy. He wouldn't do something like this to anyone though. He didn't. That's not Luffy's style. Naruto walked over to the man called Bellamy and FPED him over to reveal a marred knuckle mark on the side of his face. Well, Luffy definitely did that to him. He looked at the woman that was looking over the 2 downed men. They're not dead, and they're not going to die. That guy just wanted to hurt them badly from what it looks like. It looks like someone already worked on them though, so they should be fine in a few months. Months? Nojiko asked. Naruto pointed at the specific wounds on the men. Both had deep slash marks on the inside of their joints. Oh, that's why. Naruto nodded and stood up to walk away. Nobody should pick fights with Luffy, that kid never loses to anyone. And now that guy's going to have a reminder of his kicking for the next few months. Luffy's going to be really tough one day. Nojiko looked at him. Does that mean you want to fight Luffy? You said you wanted to fight all of the strong people in the world. Naruto shook his head. Not yet. Luffy isn't as good as he's going to get yet. I'll fight him when he's at his best, but until then I want to see how good I really am. From what I've seen, there's no one in this place that exudes any power worth trying my luck against. Most of these guys are totally weak. He motioned towards Bellamy. That guy was the strongest guy here, and the only mark he had on him from Luffy was that 1 punch mark. It only took 1 hit for Luffy to beat him. No one around here is worth talking about. Except for that guy that was walking away when we showed up. Hey. The blonde woman said. Don't give me that crap that our doctor gave us when she left. Bellamy's bounty is 55 million. That's more than yours probably is, pretty boy. Naruto laughed and pulled Nojiko next to him as he walked away. Bounties don't mean anything to me. Your guy had 55 million and got beat in 1 punch by someone I could beat if we fought right now. Come on Naruto-kun, don't worry about it. Nojiko urged. I really don't want you tearing this town apart too. Naruto looked at her. I wouldn't need to tear the town apart to beat all of these people. I wouldn't even need to tear the block apart. The aimed group of pirates looked at the pair walk away before one of the pirates standing about blurted something out in realization, Naruto. As in Uzumaki Naruto. Multiple eyes in the vicinity bulged out as they figured they had just had a brush with death itself. If what the Marines said about him were anything to go off of, that was Uzumaki Naruto. Seriously. With Soren and Yosaku, why am I doing this, my boy? Fufufufu, I do this to you because I can, because you are weak, and the weak will always be controlled and dominated by the strong. But you interest me. How strong can you get, driven by hatred? Maybe when we meet again you'll be interesting, but until then I'll give you something to remember me by. As those words from his past rang out in his head, Soren looked deeply into his empty GL on the bar as his marking started throbbing absently. Yosaku, this whole drinking thing to make me less angry is kind of backfiring. Yosaku was swaying in the seat next to Soren slightly. Well, don't look at me. There's a bar full of people that you can fight. I'm your nakama, we're friends, and I don't want you to melt this sword too. Ma, I wouldn't melt your sword if we fought again. And I don't want to fight any of these people. Soren said dejectedly. I know I can beat all of these idiots and it won't help me vent. Just keep drinking until Uzumaki or Nojiko drags our sorry s out of here. A woman with shiny pink hair done up in a bun of sorts and a small mole under her left eye sat near Soren and Yosaku at the bar with a sigh. Now who am I going to work for? She said. She wore a tight-fitting yellow outfit that zipped in front and left little to the imagination when it came to her chest and around her legs where the outfit stopped in a skirt. She also wore high brown boots that came up to her knees with medical crosses on the front of them. Soren elbowed Yosaku in the side when he caught the swordsman staring at her. I would say that you would have a swow if you lost the headgear, otherwise you might as well keep on looking. Yosaku shook his head wordlessly, getting Soren to shrug. Whatever you say, I was just trying to help. He gestured towards the bartender. Oi. Refill, right here. So, Yosaku said probingly towards the woman. What kind of work do you do, miss? He said, more or less asking for her name. The woman rolled her eyes and kept from looking at Yosaku. Murat, and I was a doctor on this pirate crew led by Bellamy the hyena, but he went and got his clock cleaned by Monkey D. Luffy, and then he and Sarkis got themselves beaten to a pulp again. They should have died. But those pretenders will just end up getting themselves killed, and then where would that leave me? She shook her head. I'm not going to be a doctor for people that are going to wind up dying anyway. Yosaku placed a hand on his chin with his other propping up his elbow, trying to give himself a studious look. I can see your point. I mean, doctors like their patients to survive, don't they? Murray's eyes drifted over to Yosaku with a dry look. You probably thought that sounded rather smart and deep, didn't you? She said, getting a face fault out of him for blowing his cover. Whatever. Why are you trying to talk to me? You haven't even bought me a drink. Yosaku immediately recovered. I can do that. But if you're a doctor, can you look my friend over? He's kind of hurt and we don't have a doctor. He said, pointing at Soren. Soren growled through his drink. Don't pull me into your epic fail to win this girl over, Yosaku. Yosaku then jabbed Soren in the ribs with his fingers sharply, getting Soren to spit out his drink and yell in pain. You son of a. Yosaku looked back over at Murat. You see. He's all wrecked up from the last battle he was in and he's still hurting from it. Can you help him out? I don't work for free. Murat said. I'm something of a mercenary doctor. I'm not going to just help you out of the goodness of my heart. That would be money out of my own pocket. You do have money, don't you? Yosaku nodded furiously. I doubt it. Soren was still reeling with Yosaku's fingers subtly jabbing his ribs up. Woman, I'll pay you. He hissed out through the pain. Just get over here and help me out before I put this moron's face through the bar. I'm not supposed to cause property damage here. Our captain does enough of that on his own. Murat stood up with a sigh and walked over to Soren to give him a short examination of his injuries. Who tried to fix you? It looks like someone just dropped you on a bed and left you there. Soren groaned in pain. That's kind of what happened. Nobody fixed me. No one on the ship knows how. And the thing is, we've never needed anyone to actually do it for us before. Ow. That's uncomfortable. Well, Murat said as she was testing Soren's right arm's range of motion. You're alright, but you're beat all too. There's nothing I can do at this point. You're just going to have to wait it out until you're back to 100%. You've never needed a doctor before. Either you're all really lucky or you're all very strong. Soren let out a short laugh along with Yosaku. We're not lucky, trust us. Yosaku followed up after Soren. Yeah, but Naruto Anaki's done a good job of keeping us all in one piece so far. Hey, do you want to meet him? He asked her, still trying to keep the conversation going. Murat raised a delicate eyebrow. Why would I want to meet this Naruto person? He isn't hurt, or is he? Yosaku shook his head. No. Naruto Aniki never really needs a doctor. Even when someone does manage to hit him, he just walks through it and keeps going. No, you should meet him so he can pay you for helping us out. Hearing that name in her head, Murat mulled it around, trying to recall where she had heard that before when she looked onto the wall and saw a rather new poster up and prominent. The poster of the bloody Naruto after the fight at Arlong Park. Wait. Your captain is Uzumaki Naruto. The Uzumaki Naruto that kidnapped a member of the Alabasta royal family. That guy is here. Soren and Yosaku just nodded. Murat ran a hand through her hair. First Doflamingo shows himself and now Uzumaki does too. And you're Soren the Plague, she said after looking at the wall and seeing Soren's bounty poster up as well. What is this? Show off your high bounty day or something? Soren's eyes gled over. What did you just say? He asked blankly. Murat blinked in confusion before speaking again. About what? She said, fearful of angering him. A pirate with a bounty over 200 million wouldn't have any qualms with outright killing her and being done with it. Doflamingo. Soren roared, standing up out of his chair and throwing his GL against the nearest wall. You said you saw him. Where did the son of a go? Murat was shaking until Yosaku stepped in front of her, placing himself between her and Soren. Calm down, Soren, you're scaring her. She's going to tell you. Murat took this moment to answer him to get the oppressive feeling of death off of herself. He said that Bellamy had an alliance with him. That must have been why we had that other insignia on our mast. He might be on our ship in the docks. It's going to have a crossed out smiley on the mainsail. Soren looked at her coldly and nodded before walking towards the door where a group of pirates blocked his path while smirking. Move. He said simply, a threatening undertone in his voice. You think you can come into our bar and start making a ruckus? Who do you think you are? The leader of the group said, placing a hand on Soren's shoulder until a hissing sound rang out and the man pulled his hand away. The skin on the surface of his hand burned away. Gah. What? Soren didn't say a word or even blink. He simply spit right into the man's eye, sending him to the ground yelling and rubbing it where he screamed his eyes were burning, his friends frantically trying to help him. Murat watched him leave and let a breath go that she hadn't been aware she had been holding. That was terrifying. Yosaku nodded. Yeah. Naruto Aniki is scarier when he wants to be. He ignored Murray's look of astonishment at hearing that fact, but what is his problem with Doflamingo? Murat shook her head. How does he even know him? He's one of the Shichibukai. Yosaku sighed. I need to go find Naruto Aniki. He looked at her apologetically. Sorry about getting you involved in all of this. But if you want to get paid, we need to find Naruto Aniki and we need to get this all figured out. Hopefully we don't end up tearing the town apart this time. Murat remained silent as she wordlessly followed Yosaku out, stepping over the guy on the ground freaking out about being hit with Soren's acid. Crossed out smiley, crossed out smiley, crossed out smiley. Soren stopped searching when he saw a ship outlined in pink with a crossed-out smiley figurehead and a smiley as the main sail with a second insignia of a tongue sticking out above it. Gotcha, Doflamingo. Time to die. He shouted as he jumped aboard the ship to find it seemingly deserted. Come out it. Come out so I can kill you. I was having such a nice rest. A male voice called from inside of the ship as their footsteps sounded out. The flamboyant figure finally emerged from the shadows of the ship to look down at Soren with a grin. Well, little Baldy. I could never forget a weird-looking kid like you. How's life? EB no jackin', rot hose. Soren shouted before a steady blast of acid flew from his arms at Doflamingo, who jumped high into the air and stood up on the sail of the ship looking down at Soren. Doflamingo let out an amused laugh at Soren. And you got the powers of a devil fruit, all for little old me. I'm so touched. I would be rather put out at you tearing this ship up, but this ship isn't mine, it belongs to some former Oshiate of mine, so do with it what you like. Don Quixote Doflamingo, this ship will be your grave. Soren shouted at him, acidic mist flying from his body, showing his anger at the man above him. Doflamingo's ever-present grin was in place as he laughed down at him again. Come on now. What did I ever do to you, besides the torturing you and making you mark yourself thing? Why? Soren hissed lowly. Doflamingo's grin widened. I already told you that back when you were a little boy. I did it because I could. Because you were weak and I was strong. The way the world works, it's a viciously beautiful modus operandi. I know that. Soren snapped back impatiently. I meant, why did you even bother getting the Marines off of me in the first place? You could have just let them continue. You didn't have to kill them and then turn to me. Fu. Doflamingo laughed uproariously. I already told you. How many times do I have to keep saying it? I did it because I could. I killed them because I could, because they were weak enough to get their kicks beating on a street kid, and then I wanted to see what they saw in it, so I did what I did to you. I have to say, it wasn't as appealing as they made it look. You were so easy to manipulate into cutting yourself, it wasn't even worth it. He stopped talking and took a good look at him. Nice touch covering the scars with those tattoos. You would think you meant to have those if one didn't know any better. He said before laughing again. Soren seethed in anger as his thoughts were haunted with Doflamingo's laughter, both in his mind from the past, and out loud in real time. Die. Ibi no Danmaku, rot barrage. Soren let loose an uncountable number of small acidic bullets from his mouth at Doflamingo. The pink feathered coat wearing man laughed loudly as he dodged every swow and let the bullets eat through the sail as he kept away from Soren's swows. That's the spirit. I knew you would end up being fun if I let you live to hate me. Soren stopped his barrage to ration what he had left of his fluids. I can't waste everything on an attack that isn't hitting him. He fired a single burst of acid from his mouth at Doflamingo, who simply turned his head and let it pee by him, allowing Soren to leap high into the air and draw his palm back. Kisho Tora, Suaraku Yama, rising tiger, falling mountain. Soren dropped from the sky at his enemy with a crushing palm strike that was dodged, sending him right through the deck of the ship, leaving a MIV hole. Doflamingo looked inside of the hole with a grin on his face. Did you go all the way through and land in the ocean? Are you dead yet? He asked brightly. Ibi no Kenkitsuzen, rot geyser. Soren's reply was an eruption of acid from the hole that he had created. Doflamingo jumped back out of the way, avoiding the deadly fluid. Another eruption occurred from where his feet landed after that dodge, forcing him to move aside again. Doflamingo moved again, only this time from the acid that had just come up from the ground. Soren emerged with his hand drawn back in a knife hand form. Ibi no deba, rot knife. He thrusted his hand out at Doflamingo, counting down the distance before his hand would pierce the man's chest until his hand was stopped cold right before it reached him. Soren's eyes raised in horror as they met Doflamingo's glee-shrouded eyes, his face twisted in a wide grin. Well, what do you know? It looks like I can still control you, kid. Let's see how much. Soren's hand slowly moved away from Doflamingo's chest, no matter how hard he tried to will himself to go back and finish the man off. No. I'm so close. I was right there. His hand moved back towards his own chest and jabbed against it like he had intended to do to Doflamingo. The Shichibukai frowned when he didn't see Soren's hand pierce his own chest. Huh, so you can't work your powers on yourself, I see. Oh well, I can still kill you. Soren grit his teeth before letting his cheeks swell. Ibi no Kuzui, rot flood. He swung out a torrent of acid that knocked Doflamingo backwards and coated him in acid as he lifted his arms to cover his face. The force of the attack pressed Doflamingo back against the mast, where the acid that wasn't hitting him began eating away at the mast, knocking it over and sending it crashing into the water. And that's that, you wise son of a. Now you're going to be a puddle. He said as he saw bits dripping off of his drenched target. Eventually it all died down to reveal that the only thing that had happened was that Doflamingo was forced to shed his pink, thickly feathered coat lest his body wind up on the receiving end of the business portion of Soren's acid. Doflamingo lowered his arms from his face to reveal his grin had dropped. I like that coat. Naruto Aniki. Naruto was finally sprung from Nojiko's inherent need to window shop by Yosaku. Thank Kami, Yosaku. Nojiko glared at him, sending a chill down his back. I mean, ahem, what could be so important that you'd tear me away from this thing I'm doing with Noji-chan that I enjoy so much and would never complain about out loud? Naruto looked over his shoulder at Nojiko with a, please buy that, look. He was satisfied for the moment when she looked away with a huff. He'd have to fix that later. Soren, Yosaku said. He FPED out and went after Don Quixote da Flamingo. I don't know why. Don Quixote de Wafutwat. Naruto asked vapidly. This is Uzumaki Naruto. Murat asked from behind Yosaku. He doesn't look scary at all. How could this guy have kidnapped anyone or killed any kinds of marines? Naruto looked at her inquisitively. Yosaku, who is this and why is she here? And more importantly, what are you doing with her? Oi. I take offense to that. Yosaku said loudly, but she's just here to get paid for giving Soren a small checkup. She's a doctor. Naruto stared at her for a few moments. We'll talk more after we handle this. You're getting paid no matter what for helping out, but right now there's something more important. Where is Soren? Murat spoke up. I told him to check for the docs. Are you sure he's going to fight this person? Who would be insane enough to fight one of the Shichibukai? Naruto stopped in his tracks. This is the guy that Soren wanted to fight. If he freaked out and went after him, it's definitely him. He motioned for Nojiko to climb onto his back. We need to go get Soren and hope he didn't destroy too much stuff. We need to stay here until the log pose resets. He looked at Yosaku. Get the girl here to the ship. You guys wait there until we get back. Murat let out a small scream of surprise when Naruto and Nojiko disappeared in a burst of wind and leaves. What? What kind of devil fruit power is that? He's so much faster than Bellamy. Yosaku shook his head. That's not a power of any fruit. Naruto Aniki apparently learned how to do all of that. Hard to believe, but he can swim and everything, so he has to be telling the truth about it. He's really secretive about a lot of stuff, but he's a captain. Come on, let's go. Murat shook her head and followed him. You're also weird. She said, but her thoughts were different, but they're more interesting, and definitely way stronger than Bellamy's crew. One of them is picking fights with the Shichibukai and he isn't even the captain. With Soren's body sailed through the air and crashed harshly on the land. He looked up at the boat he had been thrown from. Cuts freely opened all over his face. Soren coughed up blood, his internal injuries re-aggravated from the damage he had been taking. He shakily stood up, his legs still not properly healed from his fight with the cyborg, glaring at the ship. 11 years, God, you. I'm not losing after training and hunting you for 11 years. You sellout. Your world government won't protect you from me. Soren lifted his hands overhead and began drawing a amount of acid from his body in the form of a huge orb. He began breathing heavily at the lack of bodily liquids. Doing such a thing caused die. Ebi Shibatsu, rot death. Soren threw his hands forward, moving the sphere of acid that began taking the shape of a giant hissing skull that opened its mouth and engulfed the ship, hitting it flush. The acid covered every inch of the ship, bringing it down in an oozing mess into the bay water. Soren collapsed on his hands and knees, staring out at the water and where the sunken ship Doflamingo had been unused to sit. Incoming. Soren had no time to respond before he found himself driven into the ground by Doflamingo, who had his heels buried into Soren's back, forcing the young man to scream out in pain. Ooh, that looks painful. Do you think that cracked a few vertebrae? Soren spoke weakly with Doflamingo still on his back. How did you get off the ship? I never saw you move. I never saw anything. Doflamingo kneeled down on Soren's back. Oh, that. I jumped. Soren's eyes widened. You jumped. How high did you jump? I can't jump that high, he said before he felt Doflamingo's hand on the top of his head, having lost his bandana during the fight. Oh, little bald kid, he said scathingly, if you're comparing yourself to me, and I'm quite sure that you are at this point, you should know something. I've been doing this since before you were even a twinkle in the eyes of the parents that didn't want you. Soren tried to rise and fight at that comment, but as he could only try to move before pain swelled through his body from his back, keeping him down. You were a fun little loose end, I have to admit, but if this is as good as you're going to get before challenging me, I might as well put you out of my misery now. His grip tightened on Soren's head to an excruciatingly painful extent, getting him to scream out in pain once more. In a swirl of wind and leaves, Naruto appeared behind Soren and Doflamingo and aimed a kick at the Shichibukai's head that forced him to relinquish his position in Soren's head lest he lose his own. Nojiko hopped off of Naruto's back and kneeled down by Soren with her rifle trained on Doflamingo. Noji-chan, put your gun up. Naruto said, confusing her greatly, you aren't here to fight this guy. He beat Soren. Even if he was hurt, beating Soren is a big deal. Nojiko reluctantly placed her gun back into its holding place on her back. Naruto's attention turned to Doflamingo, who was standing back up staring at Naruto with his hands in his pockets and a grin on his face. So you're the guy that Soren wants to murder. Doflamingo bowed extravagantly. Don Quixote Doflamingo, at your service Uzumaki Naruto. He lifted his head up to look at Naruto. Yes, I know who you are. The work you ended up doing on those pacifista cyborgs that were sent after you definitely got the Marines' attention. I saw the footage one of them captured. Very impressive. Naruto's quirked in amusement. All I did was break a few toys. I can do things way cooler than that, trust me. That's what Sengoku thought too. Doflamingo said. He more or less told all of the Shichibukai that showed up to his little meeting to offer you a seat as one of us if we came across you on the seas. Someone has to take Crocodile's place after all. Naruto let out a chuckle. I don't fight for anyone but those precious to me. If you see this Sengoku again, tell him there's nothing he can say or do that will make me his lapdog. I'd rather be his outlaw. It's more fun that way. Doflamingo laughed at that. You know, that's the exact reason I joined the Shichibukai myself, because I thought it would be more interesting than just destroying the Marines sent after me. I guess that's how we differ, Uzumaki Naruto. He then raised an eyebrow. Aren't you going to attack me? I expected a fight out of you. Naruto shook his head and formed a trio of cage bunshin, putting Doflamingo on guard until they went over to Soren, one turning into a stretcher and the others placing him onto it before taking him away alongside Nojiko. The original Naruto stared Doflamingo down. I'm not going to fight you myself because it's not my place. I'll let Soren finish you himself, because who am I to take a friend's dream away from him? Dreams. Doflamingo said in hilarity. A man like myself doesn't have any need for immaterial goals like the one that your foolish bald friend has towards killing me. He needs a goal you can grasp onto. A material goal that can be obtained. The world is changing and dreams are dead. Naruto shook his head pitifully, spoken like a man that never achieved his own. Doflamingo's smile grew. And you, Uzumaki, are you saying you achieved your own clearly lofty goals in life? Naruto shook his head. No, I haven't. A smile formed on Naruto's face, but I believe I can achieve it, because it's not just my goal, it's the goal of my sensei, my father, my fellow disciple. It's the goal of so many people. He closed his eyes and laughed, and I have all the time in the world. Naruto turned around and started walking away with his hands in his pockets, all the time in the world. Doflamingo let out another laugh. Fufufufu. I like you, Uzumaki. I disagree with you vehemently, but still, I like you, kid. He ignored Naruto's amused snort after he called him, kid. That spot isn't going to stay open for long. I may have been asked to offer you the spot amongst our ranks, but the next time we meet it will probably be filled, and we'll be enemies. There's no reason to do it, especially right now. Naruto insisted. I'm a free man, I have my own ship and crew, I can go anywhere I want to in the entire world, and I don't need the protection of your world government for me or my people, so no, I'd rather not place a yoke around my neck to be dragged around by a bunch of nameless, faceless leaders. Doflamingo nodded. I respect that. Naruto waved over his shoulder, not turning to look at Doflamingo. I don't really care. Till the next time, later. Naruto then disappeared in a yellow flash. Doflamingo stared at where Naruto had once been before laughing slowly. The laughter grew until he was laughing uproariously. That's very interesting. You're an interesting guy, Uzumaki Naruto. Ah, things are going to be getting fun again. I can just feel it. He said to himself before walking away. Chapter 20. Roundabout way. Soren's eyes opened as the light of his room blinded him and gave him a headache. Ow, he said to himself, feeling his wounds from the fight with Doflamingo. He turned his head to the side where he saw everyone else on the crew and the woman that he and Yosaku had met in the bar there as well. Naruto walked forward and looked down in his bed at him. So he's going to be alright, isn't he, Murat? The woman blinked at hearing Naruto speak to her, but quickly recovered. Yes, Uzumaki-sama, he should be fine with bed rest, a lot of bed rest. You will still need a doctor to see him through his recovery in case of any complications in the meantime, but he's fine for now. Naruto frowned at her. She was scared of him because of the bounty and the marine backstory. No, Uzumaki-sama. Don't call me that, just Naruto will be fine. The pay is enough, right? Murat nodded. So how much would it take for you to come with us? Yosaku blurred from his spot to right in Naruto's face. Are you serious, Naruto Aniki? You'll really bring her along? Naruto stared at the uncomfortably close swordsman before making a one-handed tiger seal. Weight increase, Fuin. Naruto shouted before Yosaku's weight bands turned blue and crashed into the ground. I can't do that too many more times, he said, talking about Yosaku's weights, but yeah, if she wants to she can. She needs a job, we need a doctor, we have money, she can heal us up. She did a good job with Soren. Murat looked at him long and hard. 1 million belly up front. She finally said. Done. Naruto said in return, extending his hand for Murat to shake. She looked at skeptically. Did he really have the money to pay 1 million straight out like that? I'll get it to you once we leave so you don't try running off with my money. Noji-chan did the log pose reset yet? It's been a day. Nojiko shook her head. Nope, it's still acting up, Naruto-kun. We might as well take this as a short vacation of sorts, I guess. Nojiko looked at Murat with a friendly smile. Well, I guess she can get used to all of you lunatics in the meantime and see if she still wants the job when it's time to leave. Well, now that that's settled, Naruto said before moving over to Soren and punching him on top of the head, you moron. That's for getting your kicked and not telling me you went off to fight one of the strongest people in the world. Soren glared at Naruto as a bump formed on his head. It wasn't your problem, Uzumaki. Doflamingo is my mark. If you kill him and I don't, I will never forgive you. Naruto crossed his arms and stared at the injured devil fruit user. Fine. But killing him won't solve a single thing, I'm telling you. If you kill him, you'll just push your problem onto something else, I guarantee it. They always do. The only way he could stop Soren was by force though, and that wouldn't solve anything, it would just make Soren resent him in the end. Look, there are some people in the world that just need to die. And Doflamingo is one of them. Soren said resolutely. Naruto ignored him and continued, but actively hunting them out and making it your life's mission to carry out some vendetta makes you bitter, cynical, and jaded about life. Naruto said before realizing who he was talking to, well, more bitter, cynical, and jaded about life. You'll just look past everything in front of you now, looking ahead to taking Doflamingo out in the future, no matter how long it takes. No matter what peas you buy in the process. Then when you actually do finish him off, what do you have to go back to? What exactly will you get out of all the time you spent? Nothing but one man's blood on your hands. Soren looked away from Naruto and up at the ceiling. I need to finish him myself, Uzumaki. It's the only way I can live with what that bastard did to me. He needs to pay. I want him to feel just as helpless as I did, to feel the pain that I felt. Yeah, Naruto said sarcastically, because the only thing I know that could possibly make someone feel better about a traumatic experience is to hunt down the actual person that did it and proceed to try and make that person feel the pain that you felt. Ignoring the fact that the entire time you'll be thinking of the pain that the person caused you as fuel to fight and harm them, and when the fight is over and you actually kill them, you'll have finished your life's goal and gotten absolutely nothing but years of wasted money, physical and mental scars that the person you killed didn't give you, and a lifetime's worth of missed opportunities. He noticed everyone in the room looking at him strangely. What? I've seen a lot of stuff in my life. Vivi decided to interject and break the awkward silence. Okay, negative stuff aside, can I please leave the ship now? I'm bored here and everyone else is free to leave. Naruto looked at the princess, who he could tell was starting to feel cabin fever, and he couldn't really blame her. All he had been making her do was train and, well, that was it. All he made her do was train. That would have to get monotonous and boring really quickly. Okay, Vivi. But you do know that people think I kidnapped you. If people realize who you are, you do know that the Marines are going to be on our ass so fast we'll be pinned down before Noji-chan's log pose resets. Miss Valentine waved Naruto's paranoia off and bade herself around the blonde captain. Oh, calm down, Naruto. Say that someone here actually does recognize that she's the princess of Alabasta. What is anyone going to do? Do you really think that anyone in a town full of what? Say it with me, Naruto. Pirates. Do you really think that anyone in a town full of pirates would run off to the Marines just to tell them they saw her? Naruto looked at the cheerful blonde woman that had detached herself from him before looking back at Vivi. Fine. You can do what you want. Just stay armed, and if anyone tries to grope you, feel free to kick there or come to one of us so we can kick there. Other than that, have fun. Vivi happily ran up to Naruto and gave him a mib hug before seemingly vanishing from everyone's sight due to moving so fast. Naruto shook his head in amusement before forming a cage bunshin. Follow her, stay out of sight, and make sure she keeps out of trouble. The clone quickly followed its creator's instructions. So now what? Johnny asked from where he had been standing. We've got another day here. What's there to do in this place anyway? Yosaku looked at his most prolific partner and started listing things. Well, from what I've seen, we can drink, fight, drink, sleep, get into stare-offs with other pirates, gamble, and drink. He turned to Murit. Is that about right? She sighed and nodded. That's pretty much it. It's all I've seen happen around here anyway. I've been here for a month. I don't think Bellamy was ever going to leave. He liked the attention that his bounty got around here. Everyone was scared of him and did pretty much whatever he said. Johnny looked over at Naruto. Can I take a day off, Naruto and Iki? Naruto stroked his chin in thought. I don't see why not. I mean, we can't leave until the log pose resets or else we won't know where we're really going, so go ahead. Everyone can do whatever they want as long as they all stay out of trouble and are all ready to leave at a moment's notice. Before he even finished his sentence, he noticed that the room had been entirely vacated with the exception of the bed-ridden Soren and Murit, who herself was sitting there blinking in shock at how fast everyone left. They could have at least waited until I was done. Shortly thereafter, Naruto left the room, followed shortly by Murit, who stood up and looked back at Soren. Stay in bed and don't move until. Yeah. Soren cut her off testily. I know the drill. I'll just sleep while the rest of them do stupid things. I've done enough drinking and fighting to last me a week anyway after yesterday. Good luck surviving out there though. Murit stopped at the door once she heard that. I've been on this island for quite some time. I think I'll be alright. Soren chuckled slightly. No, I mean good luck surviving the crew. Between Yosaku's crush on you, to everyone's manic quirks, you might not make it long enough to even leave Jaya with us. He took a moment to think before adding something else, and that would really be a shame because you're good. I can barely even feel anything. Oh, that, she said, disappearing from the doorway, her voice getting louder yet fainter as she walked away. Surgery is my specialty. If you were still in relative pain after I was done with you, I wouldn't think my skills were up to snuff. Definitely not worth 1 million belly. Just go to sleep. Soren looked back up at the ceiling. Will do. He shouted down the hall at her before doing it again. Hey, can I get some more morphine? With Vivi perverts, Vivi thought to herself as she walked through the town with Karu at her side. So far, since she had entered the town from the docks, she had counted 156 wandering pairs of eyes on her, 253 odd grins from the men looking at her, and 75. Hey baby, how'd you like to travel the Grand Line with a real pirate captain? I'd give you some real pleasant experiences, little girl. Make that 76 veiled and not so veiled propositions from pirates that thought that getting that far immediately went to mean that they were great. The only good thing about it all was that no one seemed to know who she was. She even went as far as believing that they thought she was local. Maybe because she was very young, she was only 16, so they must have thought she was local or something. When Naruto hit on her, she knew he was joking and he was always respectful to her. She knew not to take him seriously. As a matter of fact, she actually enjoyed his comments. Except for the ones he would make when he ensnared her in his little obstacle course and manipulated her body with the wires. Those were somewhat uncouth, but she trusted him. However, these pirates were nothing like the ones she had grown accustomed to. The ones she had gotten used to, both of the Foxhound and Straw Hat variety, were good people with quirks and grandstanding issues that prompted them to take up the pirating lifestyle for whatever reason. Naruto claimed vehemently and loudly on a regular basis that he did not fit the description of a pirate, and he didn't. The pirates that infested Mock Town and the island of Jaya in general were the pure stereotype of what she had been conditioned to believe pirates were when she was a girl. She was debating taking out her weapons and cleaning some house, but she was still a princess, whether or not she was recognized as one or not. Want some company? She heard from Karu, though she didn't look at her faithful companion. You're already here, Karu. Vivi said, grateful for something taking her mind off of the aggressively violent acts she was thinking of. Then she realized that Karu was a duck, and ducks don't talk. Well, as far as she knew, they didn't talk. I mean, she didn't think reindeer talked either, and then she met Chopper, but that was beside the point. She turned to see Naruto sitting on Karu, grinning at her. Naruto. What are you doing here? Naruto pointed at the men on the side of the street who had once been leering at Vivi, now diverting their eyes away from their general direction. They know who I am and they're scared of me. So as long as I'm here, no one should mess with you, unless they're trying to mess with me and pick a fight, and if they are, I can deal with it. What about me? Vivi said indignantly. I'm training to handle things like that. Naruto shrugged before looking down at her from the deck he was seated atop. People won't want to fight you. People will want to do other physical things to you because you're cute. So if anyone thinks you're cute enough to risk and kicking, they'll come out onto the street and challenge me to a fight. Hey Seed of War. You don't look so tough. Why don't you bring that pretty little lady over? A man shouted, pushing himself from the side of a building and drawing a cuddle. In the blink of an eye he was pinned to the wall by his clothes, outlined by shuriken. Just like that guy did. Naruto said, still riding Karu, but with his arm outstretched from throwing the weapons. So what are you looking for out here, Vivi? Vivi looked up at Naruto with a smile. Well, you said that Luffy and his crew had been here. I just wanted to know how they were doing. Someone around here has to have met them and talked to them for a bit, right? Naruto was just a clone of the real deal, sent to escort Vivi around and keep her safe and out of trouble. He didn't care where she went or what she did, so why not just go with it? Sure. All I know is that Luffy beat up some guy named Bellamy. He had to have done more than that since being here. He reached down and grabbed Vivi's arm before pulling her up onto Karu to ride as well. On board the natural disaster, Yosaku had his sword in its scabbard on front of him as he sat on the deck. He took a deep breath and pulled it out of the sheath before placing it back inside with tears in his eyes once he saw where the blade broke off. Oh man. Why does this keep on happening to me? He asked himself desperately. First I gave my sword to Zoro Aniki when he left after the stuff with Arlong. Then my other sword gets melted by Soren, and now this. You broke your sword again. Yosaku jumped to his feet fearfully as he turned to see Naruto standing nearby with his arms crossed. You have a seriously bad habit with those things. What am I going to do with you? Yosaku immediately bowed at Naruto's feet. I'm sorry, Naruto Aniki. Just don't do anything rash. I'll pay for my own new sword. Naruto rolled his eyes and grabbed Yosaku, jerking him back to his feet. Get up, you're embering yourself. Murat is right there, he said, pointing over towards the helm where she had been leaning against the railing watching with an amused face. Yosaku started stammering before Naruto snapped his fingers and got his attention. That's it. I know what to do for you. And this could be one of the gifts I plan to get everyone anyway. He pulled out a scroll that Yosaku thought he was quite familiar with. Naruto Aniki, are you going to give me Samahata? Naruto blanched at that notion. Samahata? No. Samahata would devour you whole if you tried to use it. But I'm giving you something related to Samahata if that sounds right to you. Naruto unsealed the scroll to reveal 6 more scrolls on the ground. He picked one up with a grin on his face. Let's see you try to break this one. In a puff of smoke, Naruto then held a large broadsword, the blade almost as tall and wide as he was, that resembled a butcher's knife. It had a hole carved into it near the top of the blade and a smaller semicircle looking like it was meant for an exact purpose down closer to the handle grooved into the blade itself. Murat looked at the large blade in utter shock. What kind of weapon is that? It looks completely wicked and hard to use. She was even more shocked at how it seemed to appear out of thin air. Naruto held the large sword out at Yosaku with a pleased look on his face. Yosaku say oh to a sword that I am very, very familiar with. This blade belonged to a group of swordsmen known years ago in my land as the 7 Ninja Swordsmen of the Mist, the best and most powerful swordsmen on the continent, maybe in the world. Now in order to use the others properly you need to know how to use chakra. You don't, so I'm giving you this one, and I think it will suit you rather well, especially since I already have you using a sword that would qualify as oversized. Yosaku nervously took it from Naruto. He had never held a sword so fine before. He noticed that there were still even more scrolls on the deck that Naruto sealed back up into the singular one. How did he come across such weapons and why did he have them? Naruto Aniki, I can't accept this. Yosaku said. Naruto grinned at him and patted him on the shoulder. Don't give me that. Yes you can, yes you will. The fact that you can actually hold the thing up is a good sign that I made the right choice. Now, meet Kubikirabucho decapitating carving knife. It has a special ability that you're going to find very useful. I would love to see you try to break this thing for good. I would never let this amazing gift break Naruto and Ikki. Yosaku said frantically, "Thank you so much." Naruto waved it off. "Meh, don't worry so much about it. I wanted to give this to you at some point. But now I've got to get something for Johnny too. He can't use any of the other swords I have. They either don't fit his style or wouldn't work for him right because he can't use chakra. You don't need chakra to use this one, you just need to be strong. You're way stronger physically than Johnny is and this sword is just your style. Not to mention it will scare the out of someone that doesn't know anything about combat with swords. I know it scared me when I first saw it as a kid." Murat crossed her arm at the ongoing scene. "You're a generous person, aren't you?" she said to Naruto. She didn't see how anyone could mistake this guy for a ruthless killer. So far, other than the skill he had shown by pure speed, which actually was very scary, she had to admit, he had only seen an effective leader figure. Not the blood-soaked warlord in his poster, but it was undoubtedly him. What made him go off like that? Because it was obviously real. Naruto shrugged as Yosaku was still marveling at his new gift. "Well, Yosaku is a strong guy. If this Yosaku fought the Yosaku that existed when I first met, it wouldn't even be funny to watch, it would be so one-sided. If Luffy beat your old captain with one punch, I'm sure that Johnny and Yosaku would be able to beat him." Mirai's eyes widened as she saw Yosaku give the giant sword some test swings that he seemed to find satisfactory. To say that this goofy-looking guy could beat someone with a bounty of 55 million was a big boast, but there was no posturing on Naruto's face when he said it, and Yosaku didn't respond one way or the other. So he either knew he himself was that strong off of experience, or he believed in Naruto so much he accepted it as fact. Either way, it was seriously something to think about as she watched Yosaku skillfully go through his motions with the sword. Naruto watched and nodded in appreciation. "Yeah, you see, a few months ago that would have looked so clunky and uncoordinated, and that's with a regular sword. I'm not even talking about trying to swing that monster around." Naruto was forced to turn around when he felt a tap on his shoulder. Nojiko was standing there with her hand outstretched expectantly. "I want my pistol back, Naruto-kun, that is unless you broke it." Naruto grinned at her and reached inside of his sage coat. "No way. I know what I'm doing, Noji-chan." He handed her the gun back, watching as she quickly inspected it. "Now shoot it to make sure I didn't mess it up because you know that you want to." Nojiko finished her inspection and pointed the gun over her shoulder without looking to shoot a bottle sitting on the railing, not even turning around to make sure she hit her mark. "It's fine. What did you even do to it?" she asked him, ignoring Mirai's rather slack jaw at Nojiko blind firing without even actually aiming and hitting her mark. Naruto led her back to the mast where he had set up a target on the one behind it. "You know how I told you to hit the target behind the mast while standing right here, still?" She nodded. "Well, I want you to try it again. How in S name am I going to pull that miracle off?" Nojiko asked, trying to figure out what motion would even get a swow around the mast to even give the bullet a fighting chance at hitting her mark. Naruto moved behind her and took her hand that was holding the gun, much like the way he did when he first taught her how to shoot. "What are you doing, Naruto-kun?" Naruto drew Nojiko's arm out wide to the side and readied her finger on the trigger before swinging it inward and pressing down on her finger, forcing her to fire. Nojiko's eyes widened when the bullet seemed to curve and strike the side of the mast the target sat on. It was nowhere near hitting the mark, but the fact that it didn't just fly out into nothingness or hit the mast in front of her. "How did you do that? What just happened?" Naruto chuckled and let go of her hand. "I put a wind seal in the barrel. It's very precise. Since you can't use chakra, I made it so that it works just off of kinetic energy. Depending on how hard you swing the gun when you fire it, the bullet will curve at a sharper angle as it's coated in wind chakra. My own personal touch." Nojiko turned around and gave him an odd look. "So let me get this straight, I can curve bullets?" Naruto nodded. "Yep." Nojiko looked at her pistol. "I have to learn how to shoot again, don't I?" Naruto rubbed the back of his head. "Oh, don't be like that, Noji-chan. It was getting too easy for you anyway. Look at it this way, when you get this way down pat, you can shoot around cover. And you can still shoot normally, it's just an option. The move you need to make to fire the curved bullet is so specific you can still shoot normally until you get it down. Nojiko kept staring at the gun in her hand before pulling her other one out of the holster and handing it to him. Do it for this one too. I need to learn how to shoot this thing. She turned back towards the mast she was attempting to fire around and attempted her curved swow, only for it to miss miserably and take out quite a bit of wood. Ah, Vivi was right. We tear this ship apart. Nojiko moved back to Naruto and gave him a quick peck on the, thank you Naruto-kun. I'll have this down in no time. I know you will Noji-chan. Naruto said honestly, and now that I know it works on your pistols I can see if some other things like that will work, on the cannons. Because eventually I'm going to want to fire them at something and I just want them to rip whatever we shoot it to pieces on the first try. Bang, crazy. Nojiko chimed in a sing-song voice while reloading her pistol to keep practicing. I need to go grab some more ammunition. I think I'm going to be here all day. Murat looked over at Yosaku who had discarded his old sword and used the strap around his old sheath to keep Kubikiraboucho attached to his back through the circle. What am I supposed to think of all of you? You have to be the weirdest pirate crew I've ever seen. Yosaku shrugged and noticed Naruto about to open his mouth to address Murat on the matter. Thus he decided to do it himself. We are not pirates, really. We just find ourselves in situations that either place us in a ridiculous amount of danger, put us on the opposite side of people in power, or both. You'll get used to it. She pointed to herself with a deadpan face. I'm not going to pick up any weird quirks like the rest of you if I wind up taking Naruto's job offer, am I? I rather like being normal, thank you. Yosaku gave her a smile and laughed roaringly. Oh my dear Murat, of course you are. You probably won't even have a choice in the matter. He pointed at Nojiko who was busy working on her new shooting style. Nojiko Ainu was normal too, and now she can shoot a bird out of the sky behind her back with her non-dominant hand and constantly shoots at our feet and pistol whips us to make us behave. Murat looked at Yosaku and crossed her arms. Well, what about you and the guy with sungles? You seem like the most normal people on the ship besides the teenage girl. Yosaku laughed. Johnny and I regularly get smashed and get into violent fights, mostly with each other. And Vivi isn't really that normal. She's a princess. Yosaku then cringed at the sound of a gunswow and the feeling of a bullet whizzing by his ear. He turned and saw Nojiko giving him a scolding look, shaking her head. Yosaku. Naruto yelled at him as he walked up the side of the mast to the crow's nest to take a nap. You give out information like that on a need-to-know basis, not just because you feel like it. Stop telling the pretty doctor lady stuff to impress her. Murat shook her head and walked away as Yosaku started yelling back at Naruto something about demanding respect, and how he wasn't afraid of him. She pretty much tuned it out as she went inside, but the last thing she heard was Naruto shouting a command of sorts and a loud thud where Yosaku had been standing. Arriving inside in the common area, she sat down on a couch to find Miss Valentine doing the same, only with a newspaper in her lap and a GL of lemonade in her hand. You're all crazy. Miss Valentine let out a laugh. It's fun. Trust me, I assume that being crazy is the only thing keeping half of us from going insane. She looked up at the doctor and gave her a large Cheshire grin, but you'll understand that soon enough if you come with us. Murat looked at the blonde woman. I'm wondering if 1 million belly all to myself is really worth the headache this is going to give me in the end. Miss Valentine turned a page in her newspaper. Well, that much money can buy you a lot of aspirin. She then blinked in confusion before turning the paper towards Murat. Hey, I've got my own listed bounty now too. It was a rather grainy picture of her with Naruto cut out of the picture after their conflict with the pacifista she wound up finishing off. It's not much though, just 14 million. But how did they get it? She wondered to herself. Oi. Dr. Lady. Soren yelled through the depths of the ship. I can't get back to sleep. Give me some more drugs. No. Murat yelled back at him. Too much and you'll overdose and die, you idiot. Fine. He replied before going silent. Hey Valentine, can you steal some drugs from that Dr. Lady and s it into my lunch? I can try, Soren. Miss Valentine yelled back at him, not taking her eyes off of the paper, ignoring Murray's glare on her. You're a real sweetheart, Valentine. Marineford Fleet Admiral's office. Sengoku abruptly hung up the Den Mushi he had been using to speak with Doflamingo, as he had called him after his short run-in with the man in question. In truth, Naruto just seemed to be floating about doing whatever he felt like. But power enough to repel the attack of an admiral the likes of Kizaru and enough to put down two of the incomplete pacifistas on his own could not be ignored. Until him, they had never been reported having been defeated. Something on your mind, Sengoku? Sengoku's head snapped up in surprise as he looked at the large muscular man standing in his doorway. He was an older-looking man with gray hair and a beard along with a scar on his left eye. He wore a white suit underneath his marine captain's coat that he kept his arms out of. Sengoku grabbed his head. I really don't need this right now, Garp. What are you doing here anyway? Shouldn't you be training those 2 recruits you decided to randomly snatch up right now? They're all burnt out right now. Garp replied offhandedly, but it's always a good time to come in here and see you about to burst a blood vessel over something. So who's the unlucky victim this time? Sengoku sighed and calmed down to explain how things were going. This new guy, Uzumaki Naruto. Garp said, cutting him off. I've heard of that kid. He looks like a little pretty boy to me. Don't really see what the big deal is about him. He seems like an upstart to me. He's more than just some flash in the pan, Garp. Sengoku said, or is everyone going around these days getting the best of my admirals? Garp let out a laugh. Are you still upset that he sent Borsalino to Kamabaka Kingdom? Laughs. I figured he'd be more pissed off about that than you. And he's actually upset. Borsalino's never upset about anything. Kizaru, Sengoku said, stressing that that was his name, not Borsalino. Kizaru is an admiral. For a pirate to even be a challenge to him is a big deal. For him to actually be bested is something else altogether. I don't see what you're so worried about, Sengoku. Garp insisted while picking his ear. As far as I've seen, as long as you leave the kid alone, he'll keep to himself. It's not like he's one of those pirates out there looking for trouble. That's unacceptable, Garp, and you know that. Sengoku said, slowly losing his patience with his old friend. You know that as a pirate, it's our job to find him and bring him to justice. Garp blinked and pointed at Sengoku. About that, what exactly makes him a pirate anyway? The fact that he has a ship. Because I've never heard of him looting anything, or killing anyone except for Nezumi, and after his death we got nothing but complaints about Nezumi's conduct. I don't think it's as straightforward as you think. Sengoku rolled his eyes. Yes, because your judgment is so fantastic. What are those 2 grandchildren of yours up to these days? Oh, that's right. Ace is Whitebeard's elite. And your other one, Luffy, is out there fighting my Shichibukai for the Abit. Garp stared at Sengoku long and hard before a grin came across his face. I wasn't paying attention. I'm sorry, Sengoku, did you just say something? Garp. Sengoku roared at his laughing friend. With Naruto stopped fiddling with Nojiko's other pistol and looked up in thought. Someone just tried to be incredibly hip. He shrugged and continued inscribing the seal inside of Nojiko's gun barrel. Oh well, I wonder where Vivi is. I hope she isn't lost on the road of life with my clone. With Vivi and Naruto cloned, Naruto and Vivi left Mock Town due to the information on the Straw Hat Crew's activities while on Jaya to head towards the other side of the island. Vivi had trouble believing what she had heard the crew trying to get into, but it didn't surprise Naruto too much at all. He was actually kind of jealous, because he just knew that they managed to pull it off. So now Naruto and Vivi, the girl still riding Karu, traversed the deep forest covering much of the island so that they could reach the other end. Karu was fast enough on the ground to keep pace with Naruto through the trees, who looked like he was having the time of his life jumping from branch to branch effortlessly. This is so great. I haven't gotten to do this in forever. I thought I would have forgotten how by now, but I guess I didn't. While she was confused about what she was seeing and how he was doing it so effortlessly, seemingly at home among the trees, Vivi just chalked it up to being another thing she didn't understand about Naruto. For every question he seemed to answer, 3 more seemed to pop right back up in its place. Eventually, they reached the end of the forest and saw a Miv castle sitting at the edge of the cape. Naruto, look, what is a castle doing here? Naruto jumped from the trees and landed at Vivi's side. I don't know. Do you know if Jaya actually has any royalty or anything? Vivi shook her head as the 2 walked to it. The closer they got to the castle, however, the more they realized that it wasn't a castle. Getting right up against it, Naruto knocked on the castle and sweet dropped when a hollow plywood sound echoed out along the cove. The 2 walked around it to find a house that looked recently repaired. Who is this guy supposed to be, Vivi? Naruto asked. No one in town told me anything, they just ran away when I asked stuff. She pointed at the house. This is where Mont Blanc Cricket is supposed to live. Apparently Luffy and the others came here to ask him how to get to Sky Island. Vivi shook her head. It's hard to believe they actually went to do something like that. Not really. Naruto commented as he rapped on the door a few times. Luffy seems like the kind of guy to get himself into this kind of stuff regularly. I know he pulled it off. The door abruptly opened in Naruto's face before he could knock again to see a very muscular middle-aged man with blonde hair, sideburns, and a large chestnut on his head. He had purple pants with no shoes or shirt and had a chestnut tattoo on his left arm. What do you know about Monkey D. Luffy? He asked abruptly. Naruto and Vivi looked at each other before speaking simultaneously. He's a friend of ours. Vivi stepped forward to talk to the man. Sir, are you Mont Blanc Cricket? We heard that you know of what happened to Luffy and his crew. We haven't seen them in quite a while. Yeah. Naruto added after she finished speaking. All we know is that he beat the crap out of some guy named Bellamy and was looking for Sky Island. Then people told us to come to you. And from your reaction you obviously know him, so how's the kid doing? We haven't seen him since Alabasta. Cricket smirked. Well, I just saw him the other day. He noticed Vivi and Naruto paying rapt attention to him for the remainder of his comment. Up there. He said, pointing at the thick clouds overhead. The kid proved that Sky Island existed. My ancestor was right. He noticed Naruto and Vivi uncomfortably close to him and backed away. What's wrong? Tell us everything. Vivi said, in awe that something like Sky Island actually existed, let alone the fact that her friends actually went up there. With Johnny, fill me up again, bartender. Johnny shouted loudly at his table surrounded by others with a miv grin on his face. Right in front of him was AM of poker chips and random winnings. I'm on a gravy train and it's never derailing. It's never derailing. This can't be real. One of the unfortunate victims of Johnny's ongoing WoW streak said in desperation, that was all of my pay. Johnny raked in all of his winnings. Well, at least now I know that Naruto Anaki's dumb luck rubbed off onto me, at least as far as money goes. He reached his hand forward to grab the rest of his wins from one person until a large, heavy, curved knife stopped just short of impaling his hand. Johnny looked at the man that had attempted to drive his weapon through his hand and through the table for winning with a deceptive smile. I really wouldn't do that if I were you. The man that had tried to keep him from winning pulled his knife away from Johnny's hand. Why didn't he go through with it and drive it through his hand? Because Johnny just had an intimidating aura. No. Because Johnny saw it coming and drew his sword. By the time he stopped his stab attempt, Johnny had placed the blade of his Uchigatana against his throat. Do you know who I am? The man said. The man had long blue hair, an open furred coat with a crossed out smiley on his chest, purple tinted sungles, red and white striped gloves, and red and white striped pants. Johnny stood up, blade still at the man's throat, and walked over to his side of the table to retrieve what he won from this man. I don't know, a sore loser. Johnny pocketed his money and moved his sword away from the man's neck, resheathing it while grabbing his refilled mug of alcohol. I'm taking this, alright. He yelled to the bartender as he left. I'm, big knife, Sarkis, you son of a. He seethed at Johnny's back as he drank down his drink without a care. My bounty is 38 million. I don't even know who you are, you nobody. He pulled up his knife that resembled a kukri and spun it a few times for aesthetic effect. Johnny didn't turn around. He simply placed the mug on an empty table. Never mind. I finished it before I got to the door. Ha. He said to the bartender, ignoring Sarkis. Sarkis didn't take too kindly to being ignored and leapt at Johnny, going into a vertical spin to cut into him like a buzzsaw with his weapon, Kyokiru Big Chop. Johnny fed his sword loose with his thumb and grabbed a hold of it once he felt Sarkis launch himself at him. Yosen Ixant primary flash. A blur surrounded Johnny's body as a silver flash circled around him once in the blink of an eye. Sarkis flew past Johnny out the door, blood trailing from where he would have clashed with him. The bar stared at him in silence, waiting for him to fall until AC signifying him resheathing his sword sounded out, followed by him walking out of the bar. Everyone ran to the door to see Sarkis laying on the ground outside, blood pooling around his body. Did Bellamy's first mate just lose in one move from that random guy? Who the was that guy? I think his name was Johnny. Yeah, it was Johnny. He told us right before he took all of our money. Sobs, I'm broke. What am I going to do now? They all watched Johnny walk towards the docks as the sun set in front of him. What they didn't see, however, was Johnny's face, which had tears of joy cascading down it from under his sungles. I'm bad. I'm bad. People know my name now. With Vivi and Naruto clone, as night had fallen, Naruto and Vivi, now walking beside Karu instead of riding him, walked away from Cricket's house as the man himself stood out front laughing at the shocked faces that they bore. Vivi pointed up into the air, Luffy swung the entire ship into the air and rode on clouds. Naruto rubbed his eyes and looked up. Okay, I'm torn between being upset that he might have gotten Nami hurt, and believing that he's awesome for pulling that off. I wish I could go up there. Maybe. No. Vivi shouted at him to break his train of thought. You are not going to that knock upstream and shooting us into the air. You don't even have the stuff on your ship that Cricket said you needed to get up there. Naruto scoffed. Who needs that? I'll just blow us up the rest of the way with a wind jutsu or 2, or 3. He looked up at the sky and tried to gauge the distance from the ground to the sky. You know what? Never mind. I'll leave that little adventure to him. Sighing in relief, Vivi rubbed Karu's head as they continued to walk. Good. She looked over at Naruto. So when do you think I'll be able to go home? Naruto looked over at her and saw the hopeful look in her eyes that he didn't want to have to break, but leaving her with a hope he couldn't readily support wasn't his style. Honestly, I don't know. All we can do is keep our ear to the ground and wait for any word on it. Don't worry, Vivi, I made a promise to you and Pell that I would keep you safe for as long as you were with me, and I'm not letting either of you down. What if I have to be gone for years? Wouldn't that be inconvenient to you? Vivi asked him desperately. Naruto shrugged. That would be terrible for you, but I would still keep you with me. Time isn't that big of a deal to me. And how would having you with me be inconvenient? You're one of my precious people, Vivi, and a member of my crew. Vivi looked at him awkwardly as she didn't expect him to say something so kind. So, am I officially on the crew yet? Naruto grinned at her. Nope. Sorry, Vivi. You're close, but for now you're still on probation. Vivi threw her arms out outrageously. Again with that. What exactly does it mean that I'm on probation? Naruto laughed at her reaction. It means that you need an actual job on board the ship. I thought Noji-chan told you this already. So what exactly can you do that could qualify as a job? Vivi furrowed her brow in thought. I'm not sure. Naruto tried to help her out as they began walking through the forest to get back to Mock Town. Well, let's think about it. Let's go with your practical skills. What exactly are you good at that doesn't qualify as fighting? Vivi thought long and hard, and Naruto watched her rack her brain trying to answer him in amusement. Well, if you can't think of anything, I have a job that I know for certain that you can do. Vivi had been thinking for quite a while and drawing a blank, so hearing that Naruto had come up with something came as a pleasant surprise to her. What is it? Is it something important? Naruto nodded. Yes, it is very important to me. Vivi, you can be the ship's dancer. It's perfect, because you're really cute, and everyone else knows to look and not touch. 1 second later found Naruto flying through the woods before landing against a tree. Karu's footmark on his face. That really hurt, he said before bursting into smoke. Thank you, Karu. Vivi said to her foul companion as she climbed back onto the duck to ride back to the ship, fuming the entire way. That hole. He was being so deep and helpful, and then he goes and says something so stupid. Why is it every captain that I'm friends with is so stupid? And I'm not a stripper, I'm a princess. She shouted to no one in particular before stopping to think about what she said. Wait, I'm a princess, and that's an occupation, isn't it? I'm all kinds of things, but most importantly as a princess I'm a diplomat. And a crew that gets into this much trouble might need someone that can talk them out of it as opposed to just running through it like a brick wall. That's it, Karu. That's my job. Official diplomat of the Foxhound Pirates. She said to Karu with a smile. 2 days later, Naruto-kun. Naruto looked down from the crow's nest to see Nojiko yelling up to him to get his attention. The log pose reset. We can finally leave now. Naruto smiled and jumped down right next to her to see that the log pose had indeed reset. Good. Now we can finally leave. And we have that eternal pose that Johnny won off of those guys in the bar. We're good to go now. Nojiko found Naruto's smile to be infectious and soon joined him in his good mood. So where is that thing pointed at anyway? She asked. Naruto started walking back inside to tell everyone that they were about to depart. Apparently it's supposed to take us right to Water 7. Vivi, Miss Valentine, and Soren all said we should go there next no matter where the log pose tells us to go, so for the next leg we're going off of the eternal pose. Nojiko bumped up against him playfully. Well, everyone's aboard, and we're all ready to leave. I already told them the log pose reset, so don't worry about that. Naruto shook his head. Nah, I'm not. I'm just going to see if our potential new doctor is having second thoughts on coming with us. Naruto found his way to Mirei's room and knocked on the door. The woman in question was sitting on her bed reading a book when they walked in. So are you still coming with us? We could really use you on the ship. Do you have the money? Murat replied audaciously, not looking up from her book, because that's all I'm really concerned about right now. Naruto laughed to himself. Murat, the money's been in here the whole time, check your desk. She dropped her book and scrambled over to the desk where she opened a drawer and saw it stacked full of grouped bills and a note on top of them that said welcome to the crew, with the crew's Jolly Roger drawn on. She shook her head and shut the drawer with a smile on her face. These people are going to be the death of me, I'm sure, but I can't bring myself to care right now. Oi, Dr. Lady. I'm not in a pleasant haze of semi-consciousness here. I demand more drugs. Murat sighed to herself and grabbed her supplies to acquiesce to Soren's request, if only just once. Naruto had a smile on his face as he was currently steering the ship back on the open seas. He was glad to get away from Jaya and back out traveling. He needed to see more of the world and understand it for even a fighting chance at making the dreams of his sensei come true, and there was no way that was going to happen by staying stationary for shore. He had more than a few good friends that he believed in and believed in him, and allies out on the seas that he could trust as well. His crew was getting better and better in combat, more and more confident in themselves, and more knowledgeable alongside him. It was a learning experience for them all. As far as the crew was concerned, Soren was the most knowledgeable of the grand line out of all of them. They had their problems. Soren's ongoing vendetta against Don Quixote Doflamingo, the crew's ever-increasing notoriety attracting some unwanted attention from freaky cyborgs and the world government themselves, the blame for kidnapping the princess of an important nation, and the hits just kept on coming. Yes, they had problems, but with time everything could be solved. Hey, they had just solved one problem while they were in Mock Town. They got themselves a doctor. A doctor that Yosaku seemed to have a crush on, and maybe soon they could solve another problem of making him look cool enough on a regular basis that he would have a fighting chance of sleeping with her. Unlikely. Yes. But easy goals aren't worth having. What the are we going to get into next? Naruto wondered to himself. As he thought to himself, a sound of a bell ringing filled the air, seemingly from the sky, a beautiful sound that sounded divine. Naruto looked around to see if there was a ship coming up on them from anywhere when he finally looked upwards and saw a MIV shadow of a familiar figure on the clouds, familiar in the straw hat kind of way. Naruto let out a loud laugh as the shadow was moving about excitedly in a victorious fashion. Okay, I've got to find some way to top that. Chapter 21. I'll hold them back myself. Ashichibukai, Naruto thought to himself as he absent-mindedly manipulated the wires for Vivi's training while sitting in a meditative posture. He had been thinking on this ever since he had his little run-in with Don Quixote Doflamingo and had been weighing the positives and negatives of accepting. The negatives: it could be a trap to lure him into an ambush. Soren would be completely pissed and would probably leave the crew if he had to be associated with Doflamingo in any way. He didn't really want to listen to anyone tell him what to do about anything, and from what he had seen of the world government thus far he didn't particularly want to side with them. The positives: he wouldn't have to worry about Marines coming after his crew. He might be able to steer interest away from the elemental nations if he had some stroke with the higher-ups in the chain of command. He might be able to convince Soren that being closer in this way to Doflamingo would help him in the long run towards his ambition, and if he decided to leave, what did he care? He was already a pirate with a monster of a bounty. What would they do? Send Marines after him? They were doing that anyway. Penny for your thoughts, Naruto. Miss Valentine asked him, coming up to him with a smile. You usually don't seem to be the type to think so hard about things. Naruto looked up at the bright blonde woman before blinking in confusion. What do you mean? What makes you think I'm wondering about something? Pointing towards Vivi in the midst of springing, jumping, and rolling through Naruto's rapidly shifting wires, Miss Valentine answered his question, because normally by now you would be all fired up to finish Vivi off in there. She's been going at the same pace for about 5 minutes, she's got to be exhausted in there. Naruto looked and began paying attention to the ship's resident princess and was actually impressed. It had been over 2 weeks since Vivi had begun and she was showing marked improvement. Her reaction time and reflexes were utterly impeccable. With a grin, Naruto stopped his finger's movement and allowed the wire obstacle course to go slack. That was great, Vivi. It looks like I'm going to have to start using my dominant hand and start paying attention when we do this. You weren't even using your strong hand. Vivi said in exasperation. I thought I was almost done. Naruto grinned at her. No, you've been doing great, but you're not done yet. You still have to learn to do this blindfolded. Then you're done. Or have you forgotten? Blindfolded. Who does he think I am? She wanted to say that, but then again she was the one who asked him to train her in the first place. He didn't want to do it, she more or less pestered him into it. Who was she to complain about it? A nod came from the blonde captain, but you're not that far along yet. We'll step it up next time around, for now you're done for the rest of the day. Go get something to eat. He looked up at Miss Valentine. I think I heard you call for lunch, didn't I? Yeah, lunch is ready. Miss Valentine said, backing up Naruto's statement. Vivi went inside, leaving Naruto and Miss Valentine alone on the deck. So are you going to tell me what's wrong with you today, or do I need to start withholding meals from you until you cough it up? She said playfully. Alright, there's no need for that. Naruto said, laughing slightly. Actually, you might be able to give me some feedback on this. That had firmly gotten her attention. Doflamingo said something about inviting me to be a Shichibukai when we met. What do you think about that? I've been mulling it around in my head for weeks. Miss Valentine's visage took on a thoughtful expression as she sat down next to him. Well, I guess I have to ask you, why me? Why not ask someone else about this? Naruto sighed. Because I already know what Soren would say. I know Nojiko is already biased against most things involving the world government after that Nezumi guy that I killed. Johnny and Yosaku would go with me no matter what I did. Vivi's still supposed to be off of their radar, and Murat hasn't been around us long enough for me to actually value her opinion. And what about me? Where do I fit in with all of this? Miss Valentine asked, eager to know what he thought about her. Naruto looked at Miss Valentine and smiled. On the other hand, you've more or less earned your spot on the crew. The only bias towards them you have is that you just now got a decent bounty, and you actually worked under an actual Shichibukai before this, so if anyone had anything decent to say about it, you would be the one. Ah, Miss Valentine gave Naruto a kiss on the cheek. Naruto values my opinion, how sweet. Wrapping her arms around him and thinking about his dilemma at the moment, she finally started giving him her view of it all. Well, if you want to keep a lower profile, you'd be better off going as you are. The second you become a Shichibukai, you're basically at the world government's beck and call when it comes to certain things, or else you'll lose your status and they'll get you back somehow. Naruto raised an eyebrow. Get me back? How in the air they going to get me back for anything if they can't even beat me? They know where you're from. Miss Valentine said, scooting up close and nuzzling his cheek as she savored her Naruto time. That's why most pirates break all ties with their original homes most of the time when they leave to begin their journeys and take everything with them, because when you get famous that becomes a liability. There are exceptions, of course, obvious exceptions like Jimbei of the Fishman Pirates, or Boa Han of the Kuja Pirates, but the entire reason they became Shichibukai in the first place was for their homes. Naruto nodded in understanding. I have no idea who either of those people are, but I'll take your word for it. He looked up in thought. So I'd basically be their proxy soldier if I accept, but if I don't accept, then they'll start targeting the elemental nations. I can't let that happen. Miss Valentine let out a sigh as she continued to think. Well, there is another thing that you can do if you're really that worried about it. She felt that she had his whole attention on her and she started to speak again, but it's going to be a really out there stance. You're going to actually have to work, not just go about like you have been, traveling and surviving. What do I have to do? Naruto asked determinedly. Miss Valentine answered that with a question. What do you know of the Yonko? She saw the blank look on his face. Okay, they're one of the three great powers of the world, the others are the Marines and the Shichibukai. The thing about these people though, they're pirates. Not government-sanctioned pirates like the Shichibukai, just pirates. The strongest pirates, period. She put up 4 fingers and started ticking them down. Red-haired, Shanks, Big Ma'am, Charlotte Linlin, Kaido, and Whitebeard, Edward Newgate. The four most powerful pirates in the world and the ones that have made it the farthest along the Grand Line. They have the power to declare locations as their own or as their own protectorates. Mostly in the second half of the Grand Line. I'm not from the Grand Line. Naruto commented, the elemental nations aren't on any part of it. It's just really far out of the way and treacherous. If they really feel the need to go there, I don't think that a little thing like that is going to stop them. You say all the time that there isn't any world government influence over that place. Miss Valentine started again, that's all that needs to be known. If you can prove that you're as strong and as influential as one of the Yonko, maybe even take one of their places, then you can claim the elemental nations as your territory. The thing about it is, the elemental nations pretty much did belong to him, he just didn't run the place. He could have, but he would have been ruling with fear, as a living weapon of destruction. It would have defeated the purpose of trying to bring peace if the only thing keeping things peaceful relations in the land was the threat of one man coming through and making you do it. Eventually that would have sparked another war, with him as the target once again. However, as he was, claiming the elemental nations publicly would do nothing, since clearly he wasn't considered a power in the level of the Yonko if they were sending people after him to kill him. Naruto suddenly exclaimed, surprising Miss Valentine, you said I have to go far into the Grand Line and hurt myself among these people, right? Miss Valentine nodded, well, that basically means I'm going to be gunning for One Piece at this rate, or I might as well. He shrugged his shoulders, if you're going to go for something you might as well go all the way. Miss Valentine felt her heart start beating faster at what he was beginning to imply, so you're going to be going for it. Trying to affirm yourself as the level of the Yonko or beyond, on that of Goldie Roger. Naruto gave her a wry smile, I kind of have to, don't I? Miss Valentine stood up and started pacing, these pirates all have fleets filled with ships with tons of powerful warriors on par with that of the Marines. Fleets full of pirates willing to fight for them. A veritable army of sorts. And you're going to fight them. Is that the most straightforward way to prove it? Naruto asked her, I mean, I could just bypass them and go straight to One Piece, couldn't I? Miss Valentine shook her head, no, eventually you would have to go through their territory. They're not just going to let you beat them to One Piece, that's the entire reason they're there too. The reason they've spent the bulk of their lives out there. If you go through there you might as well be prepared for a fight, because no one is going to just let you pee. Naruto stood up as well and wrapped an arm around Miss Valentine's shoulder. Well then I guess you're just going to have to get stronger, and I'm going to have to set up some countermeasures. How much weight can you lift with your powers? 1,000 kilograms per limb. She said proudly, I've got one of a punch on me now, and I think I've come up with something cool that I can do as well. Naruto smiled at her and hugged her with one arm. You're going to wind up being stronger than me soon. You're going to be stronger than the strongest woman I've ever met. I'm excited for you. Thank you, Naruto. She said, laughing slightly and blushing, if I'm doing well, can I kiss you again? Naruto gave her an odd look before letting out a short chuckle. Valentine-chan, a kiss shouldn't be a prize, it should be a show of affection. If you want to kiss me, you go ahead and do it. You think I would get mad? He said before planting a kiss onto her himself, feeling her quickly melt into the display of fondness and return it vigorously. She pouted slightly when he pulled away. Don't be afraid of anything, Valentine-chan. I'm not afraid, she insisted when Naruto pressed a finger to her. He frowned at her, yet. You will be, it's inevitable with our luck that we're going to run into some strange stuff, some scary stuff. Just remember, I would never make any of you do anything I wasn't sure you could do. I believe in all of you. Miss Valentine smiled and kissed his finger, we believe in you too. Now go get something to eat. I'm fairly certain that we're all out by now, but if we are, I can make you something else, Captain. Naruto paced around in thought, I think I'd rather have you. He said, lunging for Miss Valentine before she jumped off of the railing and floated out of his reach on her umbrella. Maybe soon, Naruto. She taunted from where she floated up to in the crow's nest, just not today. 3 days later, Soren sat outside on the deck of the ship as everyone else trained down in the designated training area, or as most would see it, the area around the mast. We've got a beautiful day for this, don't we? He said with a grin. How's it going, Dr. Lady? Murat was busy taking the bandages off of his body. Yeah, sure you big idiot. She said before moving back to his front. Okay, I'll take your cast off and then we're done and you can be as stupid as you want to be again. Won't that be fun? A blast. The acid-spitting fighter said, eager to get back to being able to go around, doing what he wanted again. This thing is itchy. Are you sure you didn't make it too tight? A slap to the back of his head was the response. Oi. Do you want me to make you the prettiest puddle in existence? You're not going to do anything, Murat said as she began cutting the cast off of his arm. You guys are all bark and no bite. If you tried anything you would have two people trying to separate your head from your shoulders and one trying to put a bullet in your head. Soren rolled his eyes. Yes, because we all know who has the more valuable skill set here. Well, Murat commented glibly, while you're pretty good at destroying things, I'm the only one here that can put the broken down pieces of all of you back together when you bite off more than you can chew. Yeah, it's great, Johnny said as he and Yosaku walked up to them after finishing their spar. Now that you're here, Naruto Aniki lets me and Yosaku fight full out a lot more, though I think he lets me cut him sometimes on purpose, because that big sword he has should never let me get past his defense that easy. Yosaku was holding his right forearm as blood was flowing from between his fingers. Liar. Why can't you just admit that you're faster than me and be okay with that? Johnny lowered his sungles and looked at Yosaku in a contradictive manner. Because you stuck your arm out for absolutely no reason other than just to take a hit. I should have cut it off to prove a point. Yosaku waved him off. I'm sure that Murat could put it back even if you did. He said brightly as he sidled up next to the petite doctor. I have this cut on my arm, can you help me out? It's pretty deep. Because you made it deeper on purpose. Johnny chimed in, rather displeased with his partner. Shut up, Johnny. Yosaku mumbled before turning his attention back to Murat. So can you fix me up? Murat frowned and rolled her eyes as she finished taking Soren's cast off. Yes, Yosaku, she said in an exasperated manner, just be careful. I could put a newly severed limb back, but you really don't want me to. She smirked cruelly. You have to be awake for the entire procedure. I have to know if your arm is reattached to the nerves and all of that, and then there's the... Okay, thank you, Yosaku said, cutting her off and standing abruptly. I'll just be inside until you're done with Soren, okay? As he hurriedly scurried away, Murat let out a laugh at leading him on in such a way. We have to be awake for something like that, Johnny said, not looking forward to anything even close to being that similar. That really sounds like it's. I will now take greater care to not get my arm cut off in the future. Murat stood up from helping Soren and began walking away. Oh, calm down. You shouldn't be letting yourself loose limbs anyway, but I was just messing with him to get him to leave me alone. Maybe with that idea stuck in his head he'll stop letting you cut him and keep from hurting himself. I've wasted way too many supplies on him in just a few weeks. I don't really feel like buying more so soon or bothering Naruto-sama for anything. Naruto-sama, Soren said disbelievingly as he flexed his arm out and smirked at her. No one here calls him Sama. Nobody here respects that clown enough to call him that. Why are you scared of him and not me? I'm way more terrifying than him. Not really, Murat said dryly. Naruto-sama scares me because I've never seen him angry. I can't even imagine what it would be like if he lost his temper. Have any of you really seen him upset before? What's it like? They both looked at Johnny, who took on a pondering stance. I've never really seen him angry. I've seen him wound up by Arlong before, but he was calm the entire time he was tearing him and his crew apart. I don't think I want to see Naruto Aniki in a foul mood. Murat nodded, and that's why I'm afraid of him, she said as she started walking towards the door to the ship to go east. Yosaku, he always feels like there's some barely restrained power inside of him that if he let it go for even just a second it could suffocate me. You all are fighters so you probably don't feel it like I do, but it's definitely there. Weaker people can't stay in his presence for too long when he decides it's time for a fight, I'm sure of it. Sometimes when he's just walking around the ship and he pees me, I lock up, I can't help it. Johnny frowned. You shouldn't be afraid of Naruto Aniki like that. He wouldn't hurt you, he wouldn't really hurt any of us. I'll think about that, she said before disappearing inside. Johnny just watched her leave and scratched his head. Why would she be afraid of him? That's not the important question here. Soren said as he began stretching up and going through his martial art katas. The important question here is why in the is she afraid of Uzumaki, but she isn't afraid of me. Johnny smirked and began walking away. Maybe because for the last 2 weeks you've been pissing and ing about how much your arm itched in your cast. Hearing you whine like a baby kind of takes away your intimidation points. He ducked an acid loogie aimed at his head. Oi. If that had hit me I would have been pissed. You would have been dead. Soren said with a smirk as he continued going through his motions. I don't really think I would have cared too much if a dead guy was pissed off at me. A few days later, Naruto leaned on the steering wheel of the ship in a bored fashion. Noji-chan, give me an ETA. When are we supposed to be getting to this Water 7 place again? I'm starting to get bored again. Nojiko was leaning on the railing nearby reading the most recent newspaper. Then why don't you just train? I hear you talk about being bored all of the time but you never train. Okay, first of all, Naruto said in a lightly offended fashion, train what? I know how to do pretty much everything I ever wanted to learn how to do. I'm not going to get any faster, stronger, or anything like that. At this point it's just maintaining it. Second of all, I do train, I just don't do it around you guys. Everything I'm training is way too destructive for me to use on this ship, so I don't. When Nojiko asked, you should never have time to train. You're always either training one of us, or all of us, or you're steering the ship, or you're sleeping. Clones don't sleep. Naruto said offhandedly, ignoring Nojiko's surprised face as he thought about what he had just said. Actually that's not true, it depends on how I'm feeling when I make them. When I send them off and there's some kind of landom nearby the lazy bastards will just sleep there from time to time. So I need to be wide awake and away from land when I make them. Nojiko walked up to him and pinched his cheek. Are you insane? Naruto shook his head. No, your clones can train in your place. This time Naruto nodded. I don't like that. That's not fair. Naruto grinned at her. I'm a ninja baby, a lot of the things I do aren't fair. He finished by giving her a peck on the, besides, when I'm not learning anything new they're really not that useful to use training and me. They're meant to use to learn things far faster than I could by myself. So when I don't have anything to learn they really don't serve any purpose to train with. I have to keep coming up with stuff for them to try out for me. Like mixing chakra types, that's a really slow going process. I can't do it yet. Nojiko ran a hand through her hair. What are you, a god? Who can do these things? Naruto pointed his thumbs at himself. Uzumaki Naruto can, I think. And I'm not God, even though that's what I had you screaming last night. Nojiko fought the urge to pull a gun on him, seeing as no matter how fast her quick draw was, he was still always faster than her. She was never going to shoot him, so she might as well have stopped trying at this juncture of their relationship. She was sure it wasn't all that healthy to be firing at her boyfriend at her leisure anyway, even if he never openly complained about it, it was unladylike. About your question, Nojiko said, getting back to the original topic at hand, we should be there in a few hours. And remember, I know, Naruto whined in vexation, no picking fights and no wanton destruction. Why are you pushing it so hard though? You're never really this stern about this kind of stuff. You just mention it in ping and then we disregard it and end up blowing something up anyway, and then I apologize later. Nojiko shook her head and patted him on the cheek. Not this time. We're too close to a huge marine base for you to start acting up, Naruto-kun. We really don't need or even want any kind of trouble here, it's not going to end well if you do. Can you please behave? A fight wouldn't work out at all. Giving Nojiko a hug, he hastily agreed to calm her nerves. Okay Noji-chan. I'll make sure everyone knows not to go around looking for trouble here. If it's too close to a base of marines then fighting for the it won't help anyone. Water 7 Scrap Island. Naruto hopped off of his docked ship and looked around, satisfied at his placement of the ship. There. And you said I couldn't find anywhere to hide the ship. Who are you to doubt Uzumaki Naruto? Vivi. I'm a jam-up guy. Fine. Vivi agreed as she was one of the last to descend from the boat, leaving only Naruto's clones and Karu as a source of security. But remember, you still have to look for a shipwright to help fix the natural disaster. You really don't want it to be all beaten up in the middle of the ocean, even I know that. Naruto waved it off. Yeah, Vivi, I know, don't bite my head off, princess. Geez, you aren't the den mother here, Noji-chan is. Hey, Nojiko said with her hands on her hips, I need help keeping all of you weirdos in line, the more the merrier in that case as far as I'm concerned. Vivi can nag you all she wants to. I allow it. And if Murat proves to be even the slightest bit normal or stable compared to you, Johnny, Yosaku, Soren, and Miss Valentine, then she can nag you too. Boo, Naruto said lowly, being seconded by the entirety of the aforementioned unstable crew members, you normal people with your well-balanced, logical thought processes. The world is shaped and molded by the insane and the unstable, because we have the lack of common sense to fall into line and deal with the world the way it is. Without people like us, nothing would ever get done. Vivi and Nojiko looked at each other strangely before the princess voiced their shared thought. I haven't seen you do anything other than fight, sleep, and eat. I am a man of action. Naruto yelled loudly, it's just that I need the action to find me first, or I usually don't know what to do with all of my awesome. It will usually build and swell and then spontaneously explode in a cloud of victory and win. Murat sighed. Victory and win means the same thing, Naruto-sama. Whatever. He exclaimed in return, now how are we splitting up, because we're using the buddy system here. Murat blinked in confusion. Buddy system? Why? Naruto crossed his arms and took on a wise stance, because in the best and worst situations teamwork can save lives. Yosaku immediately jumped to Murray's side. In that case I volunteer to protect Murat while we're here. Of course you do. Everyone else said in a deadpan tone. Naruto waved it off and proceeded with his issue of splitting the group up. Fine, whatever. Johnny, you're with Noji-chan. Soren, you're with Valentine-chan. Vivi, you're with me. Let's go. Everyone shrugged, having no problems with who they were paired with the exception of Murat, and went off to head towards the main city of Water 7. Vivi walked up to Naruto's side and looked up at him with her curious eyes. Why am I with you? I'm not complaining, but I just want to know. 2 reasons. Naruto said as everyone split off and started going their own way. 1. In case anyone recognizes you while we're here. I'll be the one dealing with the heat in that case. 2. You are the one that insisted that we find a shipwright. That means you're coming with me when we find one, mostly because I have no idea where to start looking. He scratched his head with a frown. Vivi gave him a roaring smile. I'm sure it can't be that hard to find one. Apparently shipwrights are supposed to be famous here. My father talked about something called the Galila Company and how they were supposed to be the best. Naruto grinned at her and grabbed her small hand. Well, I know what we're looking for first. He made a hand seal and disappeared in a swirl of wind and leaves. With Yosaku and Murat, the pair walked through the beautiful city, taking the sidewalk next to a canal. One had a significantly better mood currently than the other one, so what do you want to do, Murat? Yosaku tried to say in his smoothest voice, is there anything that you want to partake in while we're here? Murat let out a disgruntled sigh. No, not really anything that I want to do. I have to stock up on more gauze and needles and thread for stitches because someone keeps letting himself get stabbed and cut up by the captain and the other swordsman with sungles so that he has an excuse to hang out in my office room. He finished, glaring at Yosaku. He backed away slightly before recomposing himself and trying again. So, do you want to go for a ride on one of the Yagara bulls? Yosaku suggested, pointing towards the canal they were walking beside, where in the water was a creature that resembled a horse with the tail of a fish that a small boat for 2 people sat atop of. My treat. No, she said, getting more and more disgruntled as the seconds dragged on. I want to find a small supply store and get what I need. That's it. I don't want to go for a ride with you. I don't want to go to a restaurant or anything. I have a job I need to be prepared for. Naruto-sama has paid me a lot of money. In advance, by the way, something no one's ever done, to ensure that I keep you all alive. I'm worried about that first. You're worried about me. Yosaku said loudly with hearts in his eyes as he started running around to different people on the street exclaiming that Murat was worried about him. She palmed her face. No, stupid. Get back over here and stop embering me. She said with tick marks beginning to form on her head. Why did I get paired with this lunatic? I'm going to kill him before the sun even goes down. Take a hint it. With Johnny and Nojiko, we're going in here. Nojiko yelled, pulling on Johnny's arm roughly, trying to get him to go in the direction she desired. Johnny was pulling back just as harshly, locking them in a stalemate of sorts. No, Nojiko Ainu, we're going over here. Another grunt of exertion that got him nowhere followed that statement. I need a new bad sword. Yosaku got that huge thing Kubikirabacho. I need something cool. Something that'll make fools crap their pants without me even doing anything. No. Nojiko shouted back at him as people ped by them, staring at the growing spectacle. We're going in here it. The standard marine issue ammunition isn't going to cut it for going any further on the Grand Line. I need hollow points for the pistols, I need full metal jacket SS for the rifle, I need saboted slugs for the Swaugen, not to mention a new Swaugen altogether. G-Badzwow isn't going to do a thing later on. Excuse me. A man came up to the two of them and got them to pause in their tug of war. The two shops are right next door to one another, so why don't you just go into one and then the other, or split up and meet each other outside? Nojiko and Johnny stared at the man before looking at each other and back at him. Stay out of this please. They both said at the same time before continuing their argument. Test of strength. Come on Nojiko Ainu, it's my birthday soon. How soon? 3 months. Fine, I'll care in 3 months, now come on. God. Why are you so strong? You're a girl. With Soren and Miss Valentine, so where are we going? Miss Valentine asked Soren cheerfully, seeing as how he was walking with some serious purpose in his stride, and anything like that should have been very interesting for her. The look on Soren's face was one of complete seriousness, to get very, very drunk and perhaps get very, very late if all of the stars aligned correctly for yours truly. He looked over at the brightly smiling blonde woman. Do you have any problems with this? Nope, I'm good with it. She said before laughing a bit, and I will watch you get drunk and make an of yourself, and perhaps take pictures of the monster you end up straddling while other poor saps buy me drinks all night for being sexy. She then tapped Soren on his head, and then I will drag you back to the ship, drop you on the deck, and go inside to perhaps see if Naruto will have sex with me when I'm drunk. Soren looked at the woman floating and circling around him, as she was now excited by the game plan of the evening, and what if Nojiko is in there with him when you show up like she is sometimes? Miss Valentine stopped with a blank look on her face before her smile came back full force and she started floating around Soren eagerly. Yay! Threesome with Naruto and Nojiko. And with that, every man within earswow flew backwards 10 meters, propelled by the blood gushing from their noses. Yes, Soren said, smirking and holding his own nose lest he share the same fate as all of the others around him. Hooray for threesomes. With Naruto and Vivi, Naruto suddenly started looking around rapidly with an unexplainable feeling of excitement in his belly that brought a miv smile to his face for absolutely no reason whatsoever. Something tells me to leave the door to my room unlocked tonight. Something wonderful will happen. What? Vivi said in response to her captain's seemingly nonsensical rambling. Never mind, we're here. Naruto said as they arrived at a MIB door with the number 2 on it. Now you tell these guys what we need done because I haven't the faintest idea about how to describe it. Vivi gave him a sly smile. Oh, I know exactly how to word it, Naruto. You guys have done obscene amounts of damage to the deck of your ship to the extent that sunlight actually peeks through when we're in the hold sometimes. The deck of your ship has more potholes than a gravel road. Take your pick for your favorite. Naruto gave her a dry look as they walked into the shipyard. Well then, Miss Pretty Princess, would you like to foot the bill with all of your lucid observations? No, I'm good, she said happily as she bounded alongside Naruto in an upbeat manner. You torment me hours at a time with what you call training. The fact that I can get the better of you at times like this makes me feel better about it all. A few chuckles escaped Naruto. Well. Someone's getting a little too used to me if she thinks that it's okay to talk to the captain like that. Vivi rolled her eyes as they continued to walk through the shipyard. Everyone on the ship thinks it's okay to talk to the captain like that, because we aren't scared of the captain because we know the captain loves us. She pinched Naruto's whisker-marked cheek, and we love the captain right back. Such a sweet little princess. Naruto said in return as they found themselves in the very middle of the shipyard, with multiple workers scrambling about around them. Oi! Can we get some help around here? Anyone? I. Naruto and Vivi both repeated in confusion. What? I said I can help ye. A man that didn't top out over 4 feet in height came from around a corner into Naruto and Vivi's view. He was a middle-aged looking man with extremely tanned skin who had a huge grin on his face, bringing notice to a golden tooth in his mouth. He had a fuzzy black beard and mustache as well as a bald head. The man had baggy black pants with a blue sash, and no shirt. which made the ridiculous amount of muscles on his frame that much more noticeable. Oh there. My name is Stanley Bulford, one of the foremen of Dock 2. Genie. Vivi said quietly, almost in an excited fashion like a little girl. She had to fight down the urge to grab the small man and order him to give her 3 wishes. Holy. Was the eloquent summary from Naruto before he regained his composure. Ah, hi there. I was wondering if there was anyone around here that could help us out. We'd like our ship to be repaired. The man stroked his beard. Ship repairs, eh? He started pacing around Naruto and Vivi. So what are ye? Ye don't look like any kind o' marine I've seen, not with a coat the likes o' that. Ye didn't come in here raising all sorts o' cane, so that makes you either civilians or the most well-behaved pirates I ever seen. Naruto's head drooped. I promised I wouldn't make any trouble for no good reason. I'm usually a much better magnet for trouble. Honest. Vivi's eye twitched at Naruto's downtrodden expression towards being civil. Don't be proud of being a troublemaker, Naruto. Pirates then. The man said, stopping in front of Naruto and looking up directly into his eyes. Ye have some terrifying eyes there behind them bright blues, lad. He said almost gravely. What kind of things must ya have seen? Naruto and Vivi both gave him puzzled looks. Alright, now where's this ship? He said brightly, switching tones once more. Really? You'll help us out? Vivi asked anxiously, excited that someone would actually fix the wrecked up deck that Naruto claimed as his own. That's great. How much do we owe you, sir? Calm down, L. The man said. I still need to see the ship before I start charging. No sir either. I already gave ye my name, understand? Vivi gave him a nod. Great. Now let's see this ship o' yours. Naruto blinked at how easily it was to convince him. That's it. It's that simple. Really? Vivi looked at the blonde captain who seemed to be stunned at the shipwright who so easily accepted to see their ship. You say that like you were expecting something different. What did you think was going to happen? Naruto rubbed the back of his head sheepishly. Well, I kind of figured that we would have to travel to some faraway place and get something. Or fight some strange enemy that's troubling these guys. He shrugged his shoulders. I don't know. You should hear some of the stories I have. Well, not today, ye won't. The diminutive foreman said, it's enough that I haven't heard ye spouting about Dock 1 and how you wished you had been able to get the ship checked there. I'm plumb tired of hearing about them. I am supposed to be the best they are, Faye. Naruto gave the man a grin. Who cares about what other people think? Listen, I'm the single most powerful warrior that ever came out of my village. Would you like to know what my rank was by the time that I left? I was a genin, the lowest level that a person could be in the system. I'm trying to say that it shouldn't matter what other people try to place you as, just as long as you know you have the talent. Stanley looked at the prideful and honest smile on Naruto's face and began laughing. Wahahaha. I like you, lad. I think I made a good choice in helping ya out with her issue. He rubbed his hands together in anticipation. So where's this ship o' yours? Vivi pulled a map of the city out. We're stationed at Scrap Island. Is that okay? Stanley let out a groan. That's a very long walk, L. It'll take me at the very least 3 hours to get there. 3 hours, my. Naruto exclaimed as he grabbed a hold of both Vivi and Stanley. Say oh to one of the coolest things I know how to do. Hiraishin no Jutsu, Flying Thunder God Jutsu. The three suddenly vanished in a flash of yellow, leaving behind no trace of their previous position. With Soren and Miss Valentine sitting at the main bar, Soren took a long swig from the mug in his hand and sighed in contentment as Miss Valentine broke away from the pack of men she had previously surrounding her and made her way to his side. So how are you feeling, Soren? She said with a slightly inebriated blush on her face. The acid-spitting pirate looked over at her and smiled in an even-tempered manner. I'm good, I'm feeling very good. This is a relaxing place, you know. Where are we again? Blue Nose Bar, sir. A man cleaning glees said from behind the bar, a tall man with a black beard and black hair resembling the horns of a bull. You've asked that question 4 times in the last 3 hours alone. Have I? Soren asked with a small smile on his face. Sorry, post-concussion syndrome and all that. Anyway, he slammed his mug lightly. Go ahead and fill it up again. I've got nothing but time, I've got money, and I've got a need to lose full control of my motor skills, so let's do this. Go, Soren. Miss Valentine said as she leaned against the bar right beside him. He turned to look at her with an amused look on his face. You are so lucky I'm here, little miss. I can't hold my liquor. I thought you were supposed to be the responsible one tonight. What happened to that plan of action? Miss Valentine waved him off. Who needs to have one of us be responsible? I'm fine, you're fine, I'm fine, I'm fine. We're all fine. So does it really matter? She turned towards the others in attendance. Who hasn't bought me a drink yet? A series of hands went up around the bar. Shaking his head, Soren turned back to the bartender. And once again, against my better judgment and desire, I will be making sure she gets back to our ship without some strange guy in tow tonight. He let out a laugh. If she wound up with anyone other than Uzumaki, she would probably kill the poor. You're a really good listener, mister, he said, trying to feel out his name. Bluno. The bartender replied evenly. I've told you this already, about 4 times. He ped Soren back a refilled mug. Right. Soren said slightly apologetically. Sorry about that. He looked around. This is a nice place though. Where are we again? He asked pleasantly. Bluno sighed indignantly, getting Soren to laugh a bit at that. I'm just kidding. I know where we are. He pointed his thumb to the side. That guy obviously doesn't though. He was pointing at a large muscular man in a white suit with gray hair and a gray beard who was out cold, fast asleep. That guy's been out of it since we first got here. Is he that smashed? Soren asked Bluno, who shook his head. Huh, he looks kind of familiar. Kind of like. Soren's eyes widened horrifically and started slowly moving away from his seat. Yeah, I'm going to go now. Later. It's so hard being so pretty. Miss Valentine confessed to the men around her before Soren grabbed her by her forearm and pulled her out of the bar, moving quickly. Soren, what the? I was just getting loose. He didn't turn back towards the bar they had just left as he continued running. We did not want to be there. Well, I didn't want to be there. Why? Miss Valentine asked as she lightened her own weight to make herself easier for him to drag. And can you slow down? You're moving so spastically, I think the alcohol is going to be coming back up at this pace. Soren stopped and let her get her balance back. I just saw Monkey D. Garp. He saw Miss Valentine's eyes widen. Yeah, you'd better know who that is. If he saw me and recognized me, he would kick my ass and drag my off to impel down, never to be seen again. No thank you. Miss Valentine hissed lowly as if it were some kind of secret. What the is Garp the Fist doing here? Isn't he supposed to be the hero of the Marines? Soren and Miss Valentine began walking again. We are really close to Eni's lobby, but still, guys like that never come out in the open, except for Admiral Kizaru that one time. I would have expected Garp to be stuck at Marineford with the rest of the big wigs. This really it should be okay though. Miss Valentine said, her stomach for the situation slowly improving. It's not like we have a reason to draw attention or anything, right? All we have to do is lay low and everything should be fine. It's easy. Yeah, sure, Soren said, not really that convinced that things were going to go smoothly. I mean, I'm decent at staying out of sight, and I'm sure Uzumaki is too. And we're the most likely to cause trouble and blow something up, so if we stay out of trouble, everything should be aces, right? I mean, it's not like anyone else is going to just show up and start something stupid that we're going to get Ed into in a few days' time. Miss Valentine nodded and thumped him lightly on the shoulder. There you go. We'll be fine. Or not that unlucky. With Johnny and Nojiko, Johnny walked back through town dejected as night had fallen over the city. I can't believe we fought for so long, both stores closed down. He turned his head towards Nojiko, who was looking just as downtrodden as he was. If you had just let me go into my shop, I'd have been in and out in 5 minutes and then we could have gone into yours. Same right back at you, Nojiko mumbled lowly. We wasted the entire afternoon doing nothing. I made Naruto-kun convert all of that treasure to actual money in Mock Town for no reason. Man, that store looked so cool. She perked up when she saw 2 more members of their seafaring group. Hey, it's Yosaku and Murit. The 2 in question were still walking, Murit carrying a few bags of medical supplies, and Yosaku trying to get her to rely on him, either by letting him carry her stuff, or her herself. Murit then noticed Johnny and Nojiko walking towards them and could almost cry in relief. Thank the gods, I knew they wouldn't leave me in this purgatory forever. Nojiko walked up to the 2 of them with a smile. Well, how was your trip around town today? Murit gave Nojiko a deadpan face devoid of humor or goodwill. Never again. Never leave me alone with him again. I don't care if I am afraid of Naruto-sama or not. I will bite, kick, scratch, or whatever if I'm ever paired with him again for anything. Johnny meanwhile, spoke to his sword-toting counterpart. So how was your day going around with Murat? Yosaku sighed wistfully with hearts in his eyes. I'm sure she's thinking about me right now. I think we really hit it off today. It's only a matter of time. Murat and Nojiko walked a short distance in front of the men as the female doctor sounded off again about her thoughts on the day. I will sew his mouth shut if I'm ever left alone with him long enough to ask me out 83 times in a row again. And then if he learns to speak with his eyes, I might do it to those too. He's not that bad. Nojiko insisted, trying to get her to warm up to part of the crew. Yes he is. Murat urged firmly. Why are all of the men on the ship certifiably insane? Nojiko patted her on the back. We're all a little bit off kilter. I think it's Naruto-kun. Hanging around him disproportionates you. Don't worry, soon enough you'll start to lose it yourself, and you won't know when. Someone else will have to bring up the point for you. Murat rolled her eyes. I'm sure he's not that bad. She said, referring to Naruto. Yes he is. This time it was Nojiko's turn to urge her point. If you stay with us, you will develop a personality quirk of sorts just to deal with all of the things you're going to see and come into contact with. Frowning, Murat slumped her shoulders in defeat. I'm really not looking forward to that, but he's paying me so much money and I already agreed. I'm honor bound. Yep, bound by what little honor I have. It's so beautiful out tonight, Murat. Yosaku suddenly exclaimed, would you like to take me up on that earlier offer for a ride on the Yagura bulls? On second thought, Murat said, with her eyebrow twitching, I don't think my personality quirk will kick in fast enough for me to deal with him without complicating simple procedures on him. Geez lad. Stanley yelled out as he walked along the deck of the natural disaster, what have ye been doing to this ship? Do ye practice swinging a sledgehammer about or what? No. Naruto said slightly embered as Vivi smirked in the background. Yeah, Vivi, go ahead and get your laughs of correctness off of this. Vivi shook her head as she sat off to the side, stroking Karu's head. No, I think I'll save them for when my self-esteem starts feeling low. She stood up and walked over to the two men. So Stanley-san, do you think you can help us out? He said in return as he kept looking about the ship. Is there anything that you want done special? Naruto's face lit up and he placed a hand on Stanley's shoulder. I'm so glad you asked that question. I have tons of ideas that I want to know if I can do or not. Stanley nodded and gestured for him to continue speaking. Can I section off a spot at the back end of the ship as a training spot, 40 by 40? There's enough space. The two walked back around that area and looked around before the shipwright nodded. That can be done. But ye need some very sturdy, specific supplies that ye need custom ordered. Is money an object? Nope. Naruto chirped cheerfully. I'm loaded. What do you need? What do you think the ship can use? Come on, give me some input. No one on this ship knows how to fix this thing or keep up with maintenance, so this is golden for me. Ye actually want my opinion? Stanley asked, almost in disbelief, getting eager nods from both Naruto and Vivi. The man lowered his head before gleefully smiling at the two. I'll need look the ship over from head to come up with things. Can I come back tomorrow, mister? He said, trying to remember Naruto's name. I'm sorry, I don't think I caught her name. Uzumaki Naruto. Naruto said, extending his hand until Vivi elbowed him in the side. Oh, I forgot. He forgot that they really weren't supposed to be letting people know who they were while they were there. Stanley nodded, not particularly registering Naruto's name as one of overt fame, and the L here. Vivi cut in before Naruto could potentially blow that cover as well. My name is Nafidali Vera. She elbowed Naruto again when he gave her an odd look and distastefully tested the name in his mouth. And of course you can come back tomorrow, Stanley-san. We'll be right here. Naruto-kun were back. The attention of the three people standing on the deck was attracted to the return of Nojiko, Johnny, Yosaku, and Murat. Who is this? Nojiko asked once they caught sight of the short, burly strange man aboard their ship. Naruto walked over to the others and gestured towards the person who had attracted the interest of the others. This is Stanley, he's going to help us get our ship in order tomorrow morning. Stanley started waking his way towards the ladder that would have him climb off of the ship. Well, I'll be taking my leave now. I'll be back bright and early in the morning, Mr. Uzumaki. Till then, farewell. Nojiko watched the strange man leave in curiosity. What an odd little man. Naruto shook his head and started walking inside the ship. Odd nothing, I think he's awesome. He's going to help me turn this ship into a floating slice of awesome. Thanks for listening. I hope you guys liked it. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a like for more what ifs and support the author. See you guys in the next video.